Welcome back to the channel. This is Trendy Storm, and you are watching What If Naruto Became Ninja Too Early. If you enjoyed this video, please like, share, and subscribe to this channel. Now, wasting no more time, let's start the story.
A 4-year-old blonde boy was pumping his arms back and forth as he ran down a street. Behind him, tears were streaming freely from his eyes, slipping from his face, and vanishing into thin air. The street is lined with two-story buildings, and from 100 feet away, the orange glow brightens the ones the boy passes. Shouts and curses from a vengeful mob brandishing torches also emanated from the orange glows. "Why me? Why am I always the target of pursuit?" They yell and chase after me even though I did nothing wrong. I could avoid them if I were a ninja. The boy persisted in his clumsy run away from the orange glow, the torches held by the mob members, and the painful objects emerging from their mouths. The boy's eyes suddenly opened. They would have to respect me if I became a ninja because I could do a lot of things. However, I must leave this group if I wish to do all of that. As he tries to recall what the ninja did to run quickly, the boy has stopped crying by this point. The blonde boy leaned forward from his upright run and raised his arms to prevent himself from falling forward and entering an aerodynamic form. They leaned forward and put their arms back to balance them out. Amazingly, he started to run more quickly. As long as he maintained his balance, he could now push forward more forcefully. Then, what was that cool thing that they had? I believe it was called Katra. I must concentrate, I must locate it. The young blonde, who was still being verbally attacked for who he was, closed his eyes, pushed out the things that were shouted at him, and focused on finding something within himself. I can't find anything. Hold on, there's something warm there. It left the boy's consciousness and entered the pitch black night. Then all of a sudden, he was glowing blue. The crowd was slowed down by the Katra blast wave, but they were furious after that. A tiny crater replaced the young blonde after he was blasted slightly into the air. After landing, the boy looked back and noticed the crater. He noticed that a blue glow was coming from his filthy hands. I wonder what happens when I put it in my feet because I can feel the warm sensation of the Katra running through my body now. The blonde concentrated and directed the enigmatic force toward his tattered sandal soles. Suddenly, he bounded forward as a wave of Katra blasted out from behind him, kicking up dirt, and he began to run away from the crowd. The blonde turned into a blur as she sped away from the crowd and toward the edge of the enormous village. He exclaimed, "Yahoo!" from the excitement of his fast-paced escape from the crowd. He leapt to his feet and soared over buildings. "This is incredible. If I continue, I'll become a ninja very quickly. Hell, I'll be the Hokage because I'm so young." When he landed, there was no light coming from the windows of the small complex of buildings. "I'll be here for a while because this place is so empty." He entered a house covertly and looked for a room. He moved stealthily up a stairway that was strangely squeaky and through a dining room and kitchen. He found himself in a tiny room with a bed that was appropriate for his size, as well as a number of ninja practice weapons and toys. His favorite color, orange, was present in a lot of its contents. Putting some Katra in his feet in silence, he leapt lightly onto the bed and lay down. He covered himself with the covers. "I don't have those mission thingies to test out the stuff I need to do, so it's going to be tough. Hold on, I was just being pursued. I might be trying to get what I need to survive and return to my apartment covertly. I will need to surreptitiously observe ninja instructors as they demonstrate all of that amazing jutsu techniques. As if they could change into someone else, swap themselves out for objects, or even create a clone." The blonde boy closed his eyes and rolled over. Naruto Uzumaki, the next Hokage. After that, he fell asleep in the empty house. The following day, Naruto awoke in the desolate compound by himself. After putting on his sandals, he went to the rear of the house. There was a garden with multiple open spaces surrounded by walls that were attached to the house. He sat cross-legged and closed his eyes, searching for all the times he had seen ninjas. "Now what should I do now?" he asked himself. He looked at the wall when he opened his eyes. They have the ability to adhere to objects that are upside down or sideways. Naruto moved in the direction of the wall. He raised one leg and placed it against the wall. He pressed his Katra against his foot's sole. To his surprise, the foot remained attached to the wall. With a smile, the boy placed his other foot against the wall. However, the boy grunted as he fell back, head first, into the soft ground. The blonde picked himself up and considered his final attempt, saying, "Ow, not enough Katra. I believe I ought to begin on the ground." Naruto placed his feet on the wall and lay down on the ground. A lot of Katra was pushed into his feet. The wall, however, crunched beneath his feet. When the blonde sat up, she noticed a tiny hole in the wall. "I suppose too much." He approached a sturdy section of the wall. He decided to inject his feet with roughly half as much Katra. His feet were glowing blue, and he winced. He climbed up the wall. He remained true to it, which made him happy. He ascended the wall slowly, but he was still stuck. He started running along the walls while cheering, mentally noting how much Katra to put into his feet. At the Hokage Tower in the meantime, Sarutobi was staring at the stacks of documents before him. If he looked at it long enough, he hoped, it would simply vanish and no one would question him. However, that is the purpose of dreaming, and after an hour of staring, he gave up and moved to complete some of it before another idea occurred to him. What is Naruto up to these days? He closed the blinds and surveyed his lonesome office. He extracted a crystal ball from one of the cabinets. The spiky blonde was sleeping in a clearing surrounded by flowers when he directed some of his chakra into the ball. The Sandame sighed and replaced the crystal ball, then got up and opened the blinds while observing the still enormous stack of paper. I'm sorry about how this turned out, but I wish Minato got his wish. It's good to know he is safe. He took a seat again and gazed at the stacks of paperwork. Work just once, please. The pile then abruptly became somewhat smaller. The elderly man's eyes widened, and he started working in terror. Returning to Naruto, with his eyes closed, hands behind his head, and legs crossed, Naruto was lying down. The sun was directly overhead when he thought it was noon. I must become a ninja. If I don't begin now, I won't live to be 10. The boy got up, hauled some of his Katra to his feet, and leapt off. He felt the wind blowing through his hair as he continued his long strides. He kept walking until he reached a district that was all too familiar, and he declared, I will be a great ninja. There were bars all over it. All eyes were suddenly on him. I should have just kept going, he said, but he sensed something around him that was eating away at their disgust, hatred, and desire to kill him. However, the boy refused to give up. He started to walk through after taking his first unsteady step. He said with determination in his blue eyes, I will not be afraid of these people. With his hands in his tattered pockets, he managed to navigate the streets. I am not afraid of you, and there is nothing you can do to change that, is evident from his face. His eyes of sheer willpower and determination met everyone's disgusted looks as he continued his death march through the streets. He found the building he was walking to without being yelled at or confronted. Bringing more Katra to his feet, he cringed and started to climb the wall. He turned to face the ground after standing next to a window. Naruto slid down to sit on his heels after leaning back until his back was against the wall. He started listening after bringing more Katra to his ears. A ninja teacher announced, so class, we will be going over the henge today. Taking out a pen and notebook, Naruto started jotting down notes regarding the lesson. Naruto glanced inside and saw the instructor clasp his hands together. In his notebook, Naruto quickly drew the hand sign. The teacher vanished in a cloud of smoke, and a figure of the Hokage appeared. You have to visualize the image in your mind, then you begin to shape your chakra in your stomach, and then you let it explode. So it's called chakra. See, now you all try. Naruto saw numerous individuals attempt to become the Hokage, but the majority of them were unsuccessful. Leaping to the ground, Naruto started to run to his new residence. To the villagers he passed, he was a mere blur, and they dismissed him as one of the Inuzuka ninja dogs. Naruto discovered the deserted compound after leaping over the shops and residences. Locking the door behind him, he crept into the house. He discovered a variety of foods in the kitchen. He took out some instant ramen and started to prepare it. He took out his notepad rather than wait the tense 3 minutes for it to cool. He reviewed the instructions and his reasonably accurate drawing of the hand sign. He formed his hands into the shape shown in the photo. He called it molding chakra, even though he felt his chakra was a bit more solid and less flowing than usual. He drew out a picture of the Hokage and concentrated. He cleared his surroundings and concentrated on the picture. Compressing his chakra, he allowed it to explode. He released a puff of smoke that dissipated. Naruto examined his hands, which were wrinkled and aged. Stumbling around from his new height off the ground, he searched for a bathroom. After locating the restroom, Naruto turned to face the mirror. He resembled the Hokage exactly. With a smile, he exclaimed, Yada. Before letting go, he continued to concentrate on maintaining the current state of his chakra. He released another puff of smoke, then turned to face himself in the mirror and saw himself as usual. Naruto returned outside, observing the enormous bathtub in the restroom. He settled into the lonely house and started eating his ramen. After he was done, he started looking around the house. No one must have lived here for a long time because it was quite dusty. He could see things much more easily because it was still light outside. He ascended the now silent steps. The spiky blonde entered the room where he had spent the previous night and examined the items. Naruto glanced at a small billboard and said, "There's a lot of stuff in here, a whole bunch of weapons made of wood and weight." The plaque was as dusty as the rest of the compound, and the words, "Welcome home Naruto," were written in kanji. The plaque, which was written in red paint that only a calligrapher could do, was approached slowly by Naruto, who collected some chakra before approaching the wooden board. "This must be my family's house because I don't know anyone else with the name Naruto." He leapt off the wall and fell to the ground before sprinting out the door, where he ran until he came to a huge bed in the center. The blonde was now sobbing as he walked softly across the room and sat on the bed, searching around until he discovered the nightstand on the other side of the bed. Naruto crawled across the bed and grabbed a picture of a red-headed woman holding what appeared to be her pregnant belly. Mom. After absorbing as much information as he could from the figure, Naruto saw that the woman had an arm around her shoulder. He followed the appendage to a man wearing Junin clothes, like the other person in the picture, who had spiky blonde hair longer than Naruto's and was bringing her close with a smile Naruto believed he had trademarked. The picture caused Naruto's eyes to pop open, and he exclaimed, "Yandaime is my father? No way." Naruto put so much chakra into his legs that he blasted off as a blue flash that looked like a comet across the night, snatched the picture of his parents, and fled the house, locking the door behind him. I remember a kunoichi yelling at a guy with white hair and markings under his eyes. She was yelling at him for being a pervert, but the guy was a little reluctant to apologize. Then she said she was going to castrate him, and then he was really scared and apologized profusely, he recalling a completely random but helpful memory. In a matter of seconds, Naruto arrived at the Hokage Tower's entrance. He brought the right amount of chakra and clung to the wall beside the staircase, keeping the picture close at hand as he started to run along the wall to avoid climbing the stairs. Unaware that he was there, he ran past the receptionist before a gust of wind struck her. When he saw the Hokage's door approaching, he drew chakra into his open hand, forming a fist, and then he jumped directly into the door, his fist flaring with the blue essence like a flame. There was never any chance for the door. The door flew inches past the Hokage's face after Naruto knocked it off its hinges and blasted it out the window. With the most irate expression he could manage, Naruto burst in, saying, "Old man, I would do it right here, right now, if I knew what castrating meant." Subsequently, an Anbu emerged and attempted to capture the boy. However, Naruto noticed this and pumped more chakra into his fist, spinning around to attempt a backhand. The Anbu used his forearm to block it, but it had little effect. The physical attack was halted, but the chakra continued to flow unhindered, and it blasted the Anbu into the wall and out of the back of the blonde's hand like a shotgun, causing him to pass out a few moments later. It would be an understatement to say that Sarutobi was shocked. What he has to say must be really urgent because he just burst in here yelling that he was going to castrate me and then he actually took out an Anbu member. "What is it, Naruto?" Before Sarutobi noticed Naruto holding a picture, the blonde's anger had subsided into a very depressed state, and water was practically gushing out of his eyes. "Why? What prevented you from telling me about my parents? Did someone tell him about his parents?" "No, that wouldn't explain the picture," said Sarutobi, who was now very shocked. Calmly, he said, "Please sit down." Naruto crouched on the nearby couch and stared at the photo, tracing their faces. "I sincerely apologize for keeping it from you, but it was for your protection. Your father had a lot of enemies, and they would have pursued you mercilessly if they had learned that he had a son." Did they love me?" Naruto asked, nodding while continuing to stare at the image. "We're making progress, which is good," the Hokage grinned. "Your mother and father would have sacrificed themselves for you, Naruto. Your mother was unable to stop holding you when you were born. To free you from her hold, we had to administer an anesthetic." "Well, old man, I've never held a grudge and I don't plan on starting now, but you owe me big time," Naruto said, grinning as she recalled her mother beating up nurses while still holding him. Sarutobi merely nodded and sighed, asking, "What are you looking for?" "There's nothing wrong with me living in my parents' house," Sarutobi said, nodding. "I also want you to enroll me in the academy." Sarutobi was taken aback. "Enrollment? Why begin so early? I realize that I won't live to be 10 years old if I don't learn a ton of ninja skills." "That's true, these damn villagers can't tell the difference between a cup and the water in the cup, but this won't be as easy," said Sarutobi, letting his head hang. "I have a minor issue with that. You probably won't be able to keep up with the kids of the right age if you start now. Did I just beat up a bunch of those guys, or did I just take out the guy in the mask?" "He's probably get 1 or 2 more down," Sarutobi laughed at this. "Well, what are your options right now? Naruto grinned and set the photo aside before focusing and moving into the center of the room to perform a dramatic but understated move. His entire body was engulfed in a chakra flame. After letting it subside, Naruto turned and approached the wall, continuing to walk up it and onto the ceiling while making a hand signal that covered his entire body with smoke. An exact replica of the Hokage was standing on the ceiling, grinning, after the smoke had cleared. He's pretty good, plus his chakra has to be intense if he can blast it out and knock someone unconscious, the person said. A grinning Hokage stood before the 4-year-old as he leapt to the ground and undid the henge. When would you like to begin? As the Hokage lit his pipe, the little blonde boy began to leap from the walls and make cheering noises. What have I done? The old man thought, laughing but crying. After landing in the same location, Naruto declared, I need to get settled in my house before I can begin in 2 days. With a smile on his face, the blonde boy nodded and said, I will come by tomorrow. Your father probably left some things that you will need my help to unlock. He said, thanks, old man. Naruto waved before leaping out of the broken window, leaving a tiny trail of chakra in his wake. Let the paperwork come, this will be entertaining me for a long time, Sarutobi said, surveying the area, which included a small crater in the wall, an unconscious Anbu member, a missing door, and a large hole in one of the windows. Before holding the photo of his parents as close as he could, Naruto woke up in the bed where he had spent the previous night. The house was as empty as ever when he got dressed and went downstairs, but then he heard a knock on the door. Good morning, Naruto. He smiled as he looked through the window and saw the Hokage. Good morning, old man. Naruto opened the door further and let him in. Naruto grinned at his father's sermon. This is a very nice place. Your parents were very humble, and they never were arrogant about who they were or what they had. The Hokage then said, okay, follow me. The Hokage strolled through the modest house as if it were the back of his hand until he came to a door with a piece of paper with the kanji for blood seal written in the center of it. Sarutobi pointed to the slip of paper and said, all right, Naruto, this is a blood seal. Blood seal? What is that? People use it so either they or their family members can open it, Naruto remarked, his eyes widening. Simply smear a small amount of your blood on the seal to open it. How can I obtain blood? All you have to do is bite your thumb and a little blood will trickle out, Naruto said, his eyes still wide with the thought of seals that are only used by family members. Ow, the boy said, shaking his hand, as Naruto nodded and started biting at his thumb, breaking the skin and sending a little wave of pain through him. The Hokage chuckled lightly as Naruto smeared his blood on the door's seal and remarked, oh, to be young. After the kanji and patterns glowed bright red and vanished, the door was unlocked, and Naruto carefully slid it open before entering the room, which had scrolls resting on cabinets that were wrapped around the walls and held them in place. Naruto approached and picked up an orange scroll that was resting on a small table. Naruto's name was printed in black on the scroll, and another blood seal was kept in place. Since the wound was still open, Naruto smeared more blood on the seal, which vanished and made it easy to open the scroll. Looking at the blonde scroll, the boy said, there's nothing in here. Naruto started reading as red lines appeared, turning into more kanji that read a letter. If you haven't noticed, I'm your father, the Yondaime. This scroll is meant to answer your questions as well as mine, just as I would ask them. My first question is, how do the villagers treat you, good or bad? You can check off your response below. After placing the scroll on the table and starting to read it, the Hokage quietly left the house, leaving the boy alone. Next to the scroll, a checkmark box with the kanji for good, and another with the word bad formed. Cringing at the pain, Naruto slightly opened the wound and said, this is going to be a while. Then more kanji appeared on the top of the scroll, and he smeared the blood on the bad checkmark. Damn it, those villagers are still haughty fools. I guess I'll have to explain why they despise you. The Kyuubi no Yoko attacked you the day you were born. Since she knocked out most of the nurses who were around her while she was holding you, I had to give her an anesthetic to prevent her from choking you. The recurrent image of the red-headed woman assaulting multiple nurses made Naruto laugh once more. Since I knew I had a lot of enemies and I didn't think you could defeat them all, I decided to seal Kyuubi in you and brought you to the battlefield. How could I have Kyuubi inside me? I've never wanted to hurt anybody, Naruto said, gazing in awe at the scroll. How old are you? I made the seal so that in case of an emergency you can call on his chakra and it will go straight into your chakra coils. I did my best on it, so if it worked, you probably haven't met Kyuubi unless you were in a life or death situation. If you do meet him, don't be afraid and stand tall. When Naruto opened the wound again, it didn't hurt as much, and he wrote the number 4 in the box. It vanished. A large box appeared, written in red. 4. Well, hee. Your mother is probably berating me in heaven right now for not requesting that sooner. Keep in mind that we will always love you. Oh well, do you currently possess any ninja abilities? Naruto started writing after opening the wound. A few days ago, I began using chakra. I was being chased by a mob when I thought, what would it be like if I were a ninja? I thought about how they run and started to run faster. After finding my chakra and placing it in my feet, I sped up until I found our house. I'm sad that you and mom are dead, but this scroll thingy is okay. Anyway, I ran out of the house after finding a picture of you two together and headed straight for Sandaime. A man in a black outfit and white mask came out and tried to grab me, but I put some chakra in my fist and tried to hit him. He blocked it, but the chakra blasted out and knocked him out. I also ran up the stairs, put chakra in my fist, and punched through the door, sending it flying out the window right next to the old man's face. As the blood seeped in, the blonde boy waited for a reply. I'm incredibly proud. Sandaime was depicted in a red picture with his fist in the air and tears streaming from his eyes. A bubble appeared next to the figure. At the age of 4, my son is defeating Anbu. More kanji replaced the image. By the way, have you ever seen a man with white hair like this? There was an image of the perverted man beneath the kanji. Indeed, that's him. The blonde jotted it down. Are you going to join the academy? Jiraiya is my teacher, and if the Hokage knows about you and me, he will probably get Jiraiya to help you with more advanced stuff in a few years. As he conversed with his father's scroll, Naruto was grinning broadly. I'm a little anxious because everyone at the academy will be older than me when I start tomorrow. Instead of getting anxious, focus on becoming strong enough to defeat them. I'm not sure if you look more like me or your mother. Naruto started drawing his face from his spiky blonde hair to his trademark grin as a red box materialized. His father's words started to appear as the image soaked into the scroll. I should probably tell you that the scroll case next to the door contains very easy.to. Learn jutsus that I got for you when you would get older, but they should work now. Oh, and since the villagers weren't very nice to you when you checked that box, several seals around the house activated, creating a barrier that will not allow anybody to enter the compound without good intentions. If you need to talk to me, just reopen the scroll. Remind yourself that your mother and I are sad that things turned out this way, but we will always love you. Naruto closed the scroll when the writing faded, and the blonde turned to the scroll case his father had indicated and approached, picking up one of the scrolls and reading the title. The requirements for the genin exam. Since it was still midday, Naruto had plenty of time to practice. He took the scroll into the kitchen and set it on the counter. Then he went to the cabinet and got out more instant ramen. While he waited, Naruto opened the scroll and started reading. Henge, Kawarimi, and Bunshin are the 3 very basic yet powerful jutsus that a genin must be able to use in Konoha. Henge alters a person's appearance. Kawarimi allows a person to move away from attacks by substituting an inanimate object. And Bunshin creates a clone of the user. However, in the past, teachers have passed users who are unable to perform the Bunshin but another type of Bunshin. It is advised that readers with high chakra levels learn another form of Bunshin, as Bunshin is used for ninjas with lower chakra levels but higher chakra control. If a user has high chakra levels, they also have low chakra control. There are other kinds of Bunshin. I could probably outrun some ninja if I put a lot of chakra in my feet, so I guess I have lots of chakra. Then it would either take a lot of practice to try a Bunshin. Or I can probably look in the scroll room for another kind of Bunshin, Naruto said as he continued to eat his instant ramen and read the scroll. Naruto kept reading the scroll about the henge in order to understand the fundamentals, and he discovered that it only takes focus and concentration rather than a lot of chakra control. Kawarimi was more difficult. You had to attach a thin line of chakra to the object, then pull it to you and replace it. To create the smoke, you had to compress and expand the chakra like henge. In order to practice his chakra control, Naruto took one of the stools next to him and carried it outside, setting it in one of the clearings. He applied chakra to his finger and started allowing the chakra to stretch between his finger and the object. Naruto discovered earlier that it is easier to manage chakra if he makes a simple hand sign. While still attached to the stool, he easily compressed and expanded the chakra, and a puff of smoke appeared. He was drawn to the stool, and it was in his place. I have 2 of the 3 jutsus down to pass the genin exams, he yelled as he ran around. After calming down, Naruto pulled the stool back inside his home. After leaving the stool in the kitchen, he withdrew back into the scroll room and searched for more scrolls in the scroll case his father had made for him. He discovered one on something called taijutsu and proceeded to search for more Bunshin scrolls. I'll have to check those out later. He started to move down the scroll case, looking at numerous elemental jutsus, but none were in the section he was looking at. Cage Bunshin. Naruto found one, but he was now quite far from the beginner's scrolls. Naruto carried the scroll to the chair, set it on the nearby table, and opened it. Hello Naruto, I thought this scroll would have been ideal for you. Your mother and I were able to easily master this jutsu because we both had high chakra levels. It's a simple jutsu that involves forming a hand seal. A reasonably good illustration of two hands crossed with the middle and index fingers pointed out was underneath the writing. Next, fold your chakra almost as many times as you like. The more times you fold it, the more clones you get. When you fold it as many times as you want to expand the jutsu, a few puffs of smoke will appear around you, and Cage Bunshins will be in those puffs. After taking the scrolls for Cage Bunshin and Taijutsu, Naruto went outside to a bench and started folding his chakra, folding it roughly 3 times before allowing it to expand. After the smoke cleared, Naruto saw 3 very pale, unconscious Narutos with swirling eyes. He hurried back to the scroll to find out what he had done wrong. It must be very crisp folds. You can't just roll it over. Try it now. I assume the clones were very pale and unconscious. Your mother and I did the same thing. When the clones vanished on their own, Naruto formed the same hand seal and walked over to the same spot, fully focused now. I have to give it my all if I want to become a strong ninja. He was so focused on folding the chakra that everything else was blocked out. He folded it hundreds of times, each time being crisp. Bunshin no Jutsu, Cage, he made the chakra bigger. The entire compound was crowded with Narutos, who all screamed, "Yada!" simultaneously and pumped their fists into the air while grinning. They all scattered and returned to the 4-year-old. Returning to the scroll, he read past the point he had reached. As a gift in your room, there is a blood seal in the closet. When you activate it, some clothes that fit you will pop out. It looks a lot like my battle clothes, so you'll probably freak out the villagers. Make sure you're ready for whatever they throw at you. I'm proud of where you are. You probably made your first Cage Bunshin up to this point. Whether you made 1 or 100, we will always be proud of you. I suggest you read the beginners section on taijutsu because it will help you learn or create your own taijutsu form. With joy, Naruto closed the scroll and picked up the nearby taijutsu scroll, which he opened and started reading. For the average shinobi, taijutsu is a fundamental martial art. It can involve intense physical training to pound away at their bones or learning how to release chakra at the last minute, such as the gentle fist style. After completing the scroll, Naruto learned the fundamental movements of every taijutsu form before moving on to the creation of one's own taijutsu form. Since many taijutsu styles were designed to counteract one another, they will have to learn your style through combat. Naruto thought back to when he had threatened to castrate the Hokage. Those guys in the masks are supposed to be really tough if they have to protect the old man. I have to create a style through that, so if I can do that with my chakra, then that's what I have to do. I've been wearing these same clothes for the past few weeks. I should get those clothes that scroll told me to get when I'm strong enough. Naruto grabbed the scroll, gathered a lot of chakra to his feet, and then blasted off. This should help me be strong enough to protect myself from those villagers. When Naruto's chakra came off his feet in the middle of the day, he was merely a blue comet. Naruto kept going over the rooftops until he reached the ninja training grounds, where he discovered 3 posts next to a monument. Like object. A white-haired man, not the one with the markings under his face, was standing there examining it. He had a mask covering his mouth and nose. Naruto shrugged it off and started working on his new look. It's good if your attacks come off spinning if you want to add chakra to them, the scroll stated. Naruto stood in the center of the clearing after placing the scroll on one of the posts. Additionally, it advised using smaller attacks and a finishing move to close out the combo. Naruto applied a small amount of chakra to the front of his fists, causing the chakra to swirl around the front of the fist. His feet then started to glow with the blue essence, performing the same action. After taking a step with his right leg leading his right fist and releasing chakra, Naruto swung around by slipping his left leg past his right and twisting him around with a back fist while using his left hand to send another chakra blast in the direction of the invisible foe. Naruto continued to use his momentum as he leapt into the air, spinning his leg around and exploding another powerful chakra burst. He landed with both hands facing out on his chest, facing the invisible enemy, and he stepped forward, thrusting both arms out and exploding chakra. Much more chakra than he had used on the Anbu blasted out in a massive torrent. Naruto is unaware that the masked ninja has looked at the blonde. He resembles him exactly. Could he be his son? No, that was only 4 years ago. No one else has blonde spiky hair other than Inoichi, but not that shade of blonde, he said, continuing to watch the blonde blast chakra out of his appendages. So that's him then. 4 years old and already learning a taijutsu style, or at least I've never heard of it. I have to become strong. I want the villagers to respect me, so I have to become the best of the best. Naruto yelled after each blow as he continued his combos, blasting out more chakra. After jumping into the air and landing close to a tree, Naruto charged all of his chakra and blasted it out, uprooting the tree and sending it flying back a few feet before toppling over. He was yelling that he had a new taijutsu style as he ran around. He just uprooted a tree. The blast wave doesn't hit an initial spot, it engulfs the object and sends it flying back. He's got talent, but if he's like his mother then he won't like being called a genius, said the white-haired man, who was wide-eyed at the sight. The man picked up the scroll and started reading it while seated on one of the posts next to the one with the scroll on it. He took this beginner's scroll and turned it into his own style. When Naruto saw the masked ninja, he turned to read more about creating new forms. Hey, what are you doing? Oh, I was just looking through this scroll to see what was the name of that style you were using a moment ago, the ninja said, glancing up to see the boy with the blonde hair staring at him. Good luck locating it there. I'm creating a dadbao in my own style. I think this guy is fine. He hasn't called me a demon yet, so he must respect me in some way. The blonde's response startled Kakashi a little. You made it on your own? How did you discover it? The ninja thought, this should be interesting. Well, I was really upset with the Hokage for personal reasons after activating my chakra a few days ago. When I punched through the door, it flew out the window and past the elderly man. When I met the Hokage this morning, that would explain the hole in the window. Then a man dressed in black and wearing a mask emerged and attempted to seize me. I clenched my fist with chakra and whirled to strike him. The chakra exploded from my fist and blasted the man into the wall after he blocked the blow. This 4-year-old child never ceases to amaze me. He has already eliminated an Anbu member. You succeeded in eliminating an Anbu member? You seem like a tough cookie. What do you want to call the style? How about chakra pulse? The blonde asked, assuming a contemplative pose. All right, will you be attending the academy? Today, I'm actually starting at the academy. In order to pass the test and defend myself from the villagers, I've been studying Henge, Kawarimi, and Kage Bunshin. He's motivated to work for his own village's survival. This kid is already prepared to become a genin. I hope I get to teach him. I promise Sensei that I will always protect him. I should probably tell Itachi about this kid if I see him. All right, good luck in the academy. Perhaps when you're gone, I'll be your sensei. Hitaki Kakashi is my name. My name is Uzumaki Naruto. Grinning, the Junin vanished in a cloud of smoke. The Tower of Hokage. Just a few more sheets of paperwork remained for the Hokage, who was reading an orange book with his headband over one eye when a puff of smoke appeared. Kakashi. Why are you here? A few minutes ago, I ran into Naruto. Based on what you witnessed, he was developing his own style of taijutsu. The Hokage was taken aback, then remembered what had happened the previous evening. You mean when he used his chakra to knock out that Anbu member? Hey, that boy never ceases to amaze me. Yes, and he has also mastered Henge, Kawarimi, and Kage Bunshin, he told me. Has he informed you that he will be joining the academy tomorrow? Yes, and I'm a little concerned about how they're going to instruct him. With his pipe in hand, the Hokage leaned back and said, Don't worry, there is one teacher I know who won't do anything. The students are aware of this, but he has instilled in them values and the need to not fear Naruto. I only wish the other educators had done the same. As he pointed to the outbox, the Cyclops said, he did say that he was learning those in case he needed to protect himself from the villagers. The villagers I can barely stand, most of these papers call for his execution. Well, now he won't go that easily. I'm putting him in the beginning class. The students will be 3 years older than him, but they understand the difference of him and Kyuubi. Is he aware of it? I believe he does, the white-haired man said, because his father left him an interactive scroll, and he most likely explained it and apologized a lot. The old man behind the desk grinned and said, Well, when he gets out of the academy, I want to be the one to teach his team. It's not like I have a choice. Lots of senseis have grudges on the boy, and he's lucky that you're willing to help him, the man said, putting his book away. If he can already complete the 3 exams, he will likely be there for a year. I will get in touch with you after he passes the exams. However, I will caution you that if you become his sensei, he will most likely continue to play tricks on you. Behind his mask, Kakashi grinned and said, "How much trouble can a 4-year-old cause?" The old man grinned slyly and said, "If you say that, you haven't met the real Naruto." The following morning, "I can't go to my first day to the academy in this," Naruto said, pulling on his clothes after waking up in what he called his clothes. "Wait, the scroll said Dad left me some cool clothes in the closet." After jumping out of bed, Naruto ran to the closet door and slid it open, discovering what he believed to be a blood seal, different from the seals he had previously encountered, in the closet. He bit his thumb and swiped it on the seal, and a poof in blue clothes and a white coat materialized. He grinned and put on the new clothes, but then he felt something in his pocket, so he reached in, took out a scroll, and opened it. "Hey, you probably look like a miniature version of me. I'll call him a mini-me. If you didn't know, that was called a summoning scroll. You can find some scrolls on summoning in the scroll room." With the exception of the whisker marks, the blonde boy looked exactly like his father when he looked into the mirror. He grabbed the notepad he had to listen in on the lessons, ran down the stairs, and grabbed his parents' picture to put in the pouches for weapons and gear that were on the blue clothes, but at the time he had none. When the blonde boy finished packing for his first day and making more instant ramen, he ate it quickly and threw it out before running through the front door and locking it behind him. The blue blur sped through the streets, unrecognizable to the villagers, and slowed down when he saw the academy. Naruto then leapt off, chakra in his legs, feeling all the odd looks directed at him as he walked. Naruto spun around and ducked under a punch when he suddenly felt a killing intent approaching from behind him. Instinctively, chakra flew into the spiral motion around his fist and went directly into the attacker's gut. Everyone was looking at him in terror, and Naruto quickly attempted to calm them down after the man, who appeared to be a construction worker, was blown back into a wall and slid to the ground. "Hey, don't be scared of me. I was just protecting myself when he attacked first. You saw him, but I would never attack someone without cause." Naruto glanced down at his new watch quickly and said, "Crap, I'm going to be late." He made the basic hand sign for chakra control, and as the chakra started to rotate around his feet, he shot off down the street, the wind blowing behind him. With a gust of wind behind him, he landed directly next to the academy, where the Hokage was waiting to assist him at the entrance. "Yo, old man," he waved. "Naruto, you were right on time, but did you really need to make such a destructive entrance?" The blonde scratched the back of his head and said, "You know me." The two entered the academy's tiny entrance and said, "Let's get inside." "Now Naruto, these kids are 3 years older than you, but don't get worried, the teacher I'm assigning you to taught them the difference between you and Kyuubi, and he says that they all treat you just as anyone else." "Thanks, old man." Naruto grinned at the prospect of normalcy. The two kept walking until they came to a door, and Naruto chose to listen in when the elderly man knocked. After a loud, "Hi," the teacher said, "You may come in." "Okay, class, here he comes. Remember, he is a few years younger than you, but none of you should underestimate him." The teacher, wearing a chunin vest and blue clothes similar to Naruto's underneath, had a gash across his nose and brown, spiky hair in a ponytail. The blonde entered the room as the Hokage opened the door and was greeted by a flurry of bewildered looks. "Hey, my name is Iruka Amino, but you can call me Iruka. Sensei, well, this is your class, would you like to introduce yourself?" After taking a deep breath, the blonde nodded and said, "Hey, I'm Uzumaki Naruto." After a shaky, "Hi Naruto," everyone fell silent so their teacher could speak. "Okay Naruto, your seat is up there." Iruka gestured to a seat near the back, and Naruto ascended the stairs. He took a seat beside a girl with claw-like markings on her cheeks, wearing tight gray short shorts, a gray vest with bandages wrapped around her forearms, and a tattoo on her right shoulder. "Hello, I'm Hana Inuzuka. You know Naruto. Don't you seem too young to be in the academy?" The blonde asked with a stupid nod. Few people, especially those under 6, arrive at the academy early. "I am, but I'm a lot tougher than you think. Even after 2 years in the academy, I can only perform Henjin Bunshin. I can actually perform Kawarimi, Henge, and Kage Bunshin." "You're capable of doing all of that. Could you possibly assist me with Kawarimi?" "Sure, I can assist you." The blonde grinned. "Naruto, would you kindly step aside as we're going to test your abilities?" "Okay, there are 3 jutsus that you have to learn to pass the exam, along with a written test and an accuracy test," the teacher said, glancing at Naruto, who nodded and leapt to the ground. "Henge is the first. Make this hand sign with your hands together. There will be a puff of smoke if you try to visualize me in your mind, compress, and then expand your chakra." "Henge," the boy said with a smile and a sign. Everyone, including the teacher, gasped when he yelled, and then another Uruka appeared with a puff of smoke. "Hi," said the other Uruka in its own Uruka voice. "Well down Naruto, you may sit back down." Uruka regained his composure and gazed at the copy of himself as it transformed into a smiling blonde. He spoke tremblingly. Naruto went back to his seat next to the Hana and said, "Wow, I guess you weren't lying." She smiled and flashed her canines, and the blonde turned to the teacher's lessons. This kid could be the next Itachi Uchiha. Henge on his first try. After a year, he and Hana became a very successful team despite their age, and she even developed a slight crush on the boy. Waiting for a few more years when it would seem less strange. Naruto trained, learning everything he could from the scarred teacher. His clothes were identical to his father's, but he did not wear the Chunin vest. His brother was supposed to be a tough Chunin or something, and Naruto also made friends with another student, Idate, who was fine but a little cocky. Naruto said that arrogance would eventually catch up with him. Since his sister frequently asked for help at her house, her mother doesn't care about Kyuubi, but she has teased Hana about her fondness for the blonde prodigy. And Kiba is still completely unaware of this. Naruto has also become closer to the children his age. His classmates all hold him in the highest regard, but the villagers retreated after his encounter with the construction worker, and all he received were looks of unease. Speeding through the scroll room, Naruto discovered his element, wind and other basic yet powerful jutsus. Fortunately, he was too young for fangirls and he retained the same amount of humorous smugness as when he first arrived at the academy. With him, Hana's ninja puppies, and Idate working together, they were able to skip a few years and were currently in the advanced classes of the academy. They don't treat him any better or worse because of who his father was or what was inside of him. Although Uruka continues to teach their classes, they have become closer to Naruto, and they are frequently seen eating ramen at Ichiraku. By giving him more difficult tests, the other teachers attempted to slow Naruto down, but he aced them, making them all pout in their corners. Today was the exam day, and thanks to Yondaimi's scrolls, the three have been practicing non-stop until they are able to perform henge, kawarimi, and a form of bunshin while they sleep. Uruka, holding a clipboard, said, "Okay, Uzumaki Naruto, come with me to the examination room." Hana and Idate gave him the thumbs up, and he fled the room. Uruka and another teacher were testing the students inside the room. "All right, Naruto, if you get this, you'll graduate in record time," the teacher said. "To pass, do any type of bunshin." Raising his hands, Naruto exclaimed, "Kage bunshin no jutsu." 20 Narutos showed up. "Why couldn't you just fail, demon? Damn it." Before Uruka could react, the teacher drew a kunai and went after the real Naruto. After grabbing the crazy teacher's wrist and pushing it aside, Naruto threw chakra into his fist and pushed it into the man's stomach, sending him flying back into the wall as Naruto ran at him. He then leapt and delivered a final blow with his foot, sending the Chunin flying through the wall and into the empty classroom across the room. Naruto, are you okay?" Uruka said anxiously. "I'm fine, sensei. May I please have my headband?" He uttered those words. "Close your eyes, Naruto," the Chunin said, laughing. Naruto opened his eyes and glanced at his sensei, who was not wearing his headband, after the blonde closed his eyes and felt something wrap around his forehead. "Congratulations Naruto, I'm proud of you." Instead of feeling his forehead, Naruto felt cold metal, and he smiled broadly, saying, "I'm a ninja. I'm a ninja." The blonde ran out of the room to the classroom. He ran up to his seat in between Idate and Hana. "Guys, I'm a ninja." Naruto.kun. "Congratulations. I heard a lot of loud noises from the other room." "What was that?" Hana said, embracing him. Both of them blushed before Idate spoke. "I was attacked by a teacher who was upset that I had passed. I kicked him through the wall into the other classroom." The smirking blonde made Hana, her dogs, and Idate perspire. The following day, fortunately, the three were placed on the same genin squad after their teachers noticed how well they collaborated. They had been waiting for their new sensei for an hour and were still as bored as ever. The new construction ended up shooting the eraser at the door while dropping a bucket of water on their sensei's head, and then Naruto changed into the Yondaime. Naruto stuck an eraser at the top of the door to give as much entertainment as possible, but that was 20 minutes ago. Before they heard footsteps close to the door, Idate said, "I say we get a catapult." They all stared at the door until a hand appeared and slid it open. When another wire tripped, tipping the bucket of water over, the man keeled over, holding his face, and the water splashed at him, causing the bucket to land on top of his head. Naruto then performed the hand signals for henge, launching the eraser directly at the person's face. By now, Naruto had finished the henge and was resembling the Yondaime, and the Genin company was laughing at the sight of the tricked Junin. Their sensei grabbed the pail and lifted it to reveal the pranksters. First impression I sensei. As he fainted, the pail flew off the head over a Junin with silver hair. The sight of the now seriously deceived Junin had everyone laughing. Naruto, that was a good one, Idate said, and Hana responded, wiping away her tears, yeah hey, but seriously I think we should wake him up now Naruto.kun. After nodding, the blonde boy suddenly produced another bucket of water, splashing the Junin's face with it. When the Junin awoke, a miniature Minato was there. Sensei? She smiled and said, close, but I'm a little shorter. The three. Genin's sweat dropped as he said, correction, first impression I loathe you. After a few hours, since he told us not to eat the morning, we'll all pack soldier pills. Hana said, taking 2 packs out of her bag, after Kakashi. Sensei instructed them to meet him at their training grounds early in the morning. If I had to guess he's going to give us another test, those tests were way too easy and we are ninja. Idate nodded as she tossed them both to Naruto and Idate, who then placed them in his bag. The others nodded as Naruto followed Idate's example and said, let's go train now and rest up later. We're all at least 4 years younger than normal genin, we have to stick together, if we don't we'll all crumble. In the office of the Hokage. Come on, what did I do before? This is excruciatingly painful, the elderly man said, glaring at his paperwork once more in the hopes of repeating the action. Then, without any surprise, a puff of smoke appeared in front of the elderly man, who was reading an orange book while wearing a mask. Kakashi? Do you have any updates regarding our favorite blonde? As he lit his pipe, Sandaime spoke. Hey, what did he do to you? I just met him and his team, and yes, they did pull a practical joke on me. He threw a bucket on my head, smashed into Yondaime, and swung an eraser at my face. Laughing at his misfortune, the elderly man said, he is a little violent with his pranks, but if you get closer to him he'll ease up on the pranks. So why is Ibiki's younger brother Naruto in Inuzuka? Behind his book, the man in the mask said. As if they could hear each other's thoughts, they already work together. I wouldn't be shocked if they were already formulating plans to deal with you tomorrow. When it comes to teamwork, they're like a well-oiled machine. Because they support one another, they're all quick, powerful, and intelligent. They're not even genin and they can work together that well? Kakashi said, putting his book aside to listen to more. They were the youngest when they graduated, so naturally they worked together, plus I have seen Hana stare at Naruto a few times when she thought he wasn't looking. After saying, interesting, I'll see what they can do tomorrow morning. Kakashi vanished in a whirlpool of foliage. The Hokage took another drag from his pipe and remarked, if he doesn't remain focused, he won't return alive. The following morning, together, the three showed up at the rendezvous. Naruto clenched his fists and uttered, damn it, we have to wait another 45 minutes. Idate said, well, let's start building that catapult. When their sensei showed up, the three nodded and started to scatter. After what you did to me, I'm not letting any of you have time to construct new torture for me. After a brief burst of laughter, the three let him go. Since you were going to part of my team, I decided that I would conduct my own examination to test your skills. The genin sighed and then nodded. Kakashi was a little taken aback by their straightforward response. We kind of knew that you were going to test us on your own, so we were practicing yesterday to fight you. Well, good choice, because basically that's what you'll be doing, Kakashi said, extracting 2 bells from his ninja pouch that were strung to strings. You will be fighting me to get one of these. I want you to come at me with the intent to kill. Kakashi crossed his arms and tucked the rope into his belt. After giving each other a nod, the 3 genin took out the radios that were fastened around their necks. They all assumed combat positions. Chakra started to emerge from Naruto's glowing appendages and swirl around his feet and fists. With his left leg behind him and his right leg facing Kakashi, he raised his fists close to his face. Like his chest, both feet were resting with their backs to his left. With her 3 puppies in front of her, Hana squatted down and supported herself with both hands while snarling. Idate took off his leg weights and tossed them over by the forest trees, assuming Naruto's stance but with his legs bouncing, ready to move at any time. Kakashi installed an alarm clock on a nearby post. You have until noon to get the bells. Soldier pills were taken out of their pouches by each genin, who then put them in their mouths, making sure to give one to each dog. Their chakra erupted from their bodies and then subsided to a faint radiance. They are intelligent, a well-oiled machine that obtained the nutrition they needed from the soldier pills despite not eating anything. However, how do they perform in combat? Ready, set, go. exclaimed Kakashi. Idate launched his first punch, which Kakashi managed to avoid by swerving back. Idate then proceeded with his combos, diverting the Junin's attention as Hana, her dogs, and Naruto started to sprint up the field in their direction. 5 clones materialized behind Naruto after he yelled, "Kage Bunshin no Jutsu," and made a hand gesture. Kakashi was forced to leap into the air by Idate in order to avoid a sweep kick. As the others ran up, the Narutos seized the Junin's arms and legs. As Hana went for the bells, the dogs all bit down on his limbs. The body of their Junin sensei was covered in white smoke and turned into a chopped up log just before Hana arrived at the bells. The 3 landed with their backs to one another. Naruto changed his radio's frequency and said, "Channel 2. The 6 of them leapt into the forest after the other 2 nodded. Arms folded, the masked Junin emerged from the bushes and returned to the clearing. Those teeth were so close they could have severed my arms. What are they planning now, I wonder?" Then all of a sudden, 3 blurs charged out of the forest. Leaping back, the masked Junin seized one of the blurs. The 2 other blurs clung to the man and knocked him down, saying, "It's one of those dogs." A yellow blur then materialized and seized both of his legs as there was some rumbling at his feet. Then a kunai was held to Kakashi's neck and something flew straight to his head. "Hana now!" exclaimed the blonde. Below the masked man, a shout of, "Suga!" came from the ground. The bells from the man's belt were snatched by a spiraling gray blur that emerged from the ground right next to him. Hana showed up carrying the bells and giving Idate one. Behind his mask, the man who was being held to the ground grinned and spoke. "You pass." After a few days. For the past few days, Team 4 has been repeatedly performing the same mission. Track down and seize the cat belonging to the daimyo's wife. It's more difficult because Hana caught the red blur despite her dogs barking at it. Similar to the hunt, but with ninjas and cats, they even started holding a competition against the other teams to see who could catch it first. With scheduled training and a sensei to point out their mistakes, their teamwork only improved. In order to practice more complex jutsus, Naruto continued to bring some of his father's scrolls to training. Only 2 of the other teams fulfilled their repeated requests for simulated battles. They consistently prevailed, and when the other teams reluctantly agreed, they even assisted them. Kakashi called them to a meeting to discuss the upcoming Chunin exams. Their Junin sensei was reading his orange book when they arrived. Kakashi handed each of them a paper after saying, "Hey, just to let you guys know, I signed you up for the Chunin exams. I think you all will do well in it." Their sensei vanished in a cloud of leaves, saying, "You must sign these and turn them in at the academy on Friday at 3 p.m. Dismissed. They glanced at one another and at the papers. In search of their responses, Naruto asked, "What do you guys think?" "I say we do it. We have the most powerful teamwork attacks. We can blow away the competition." Idate responded. Hana put her hand on Naruto's shoulder and said, "It's true that if we all cooperate, we can defeat the opposition." This made Naruto smile. With a foxy grin, Naruto said, "Thanks Hana, I needed that." To his friends, Naruto waved, "I need to pick up a few things at home if we're going to go in the Chunin exams, all right." Idate turned to the Inuzuka girl and smiled knowingly when Naruto was finally out of earshot. She petted one of the 3 puppies and questioned, "What?" Idate smiled and asked, "So when are you going to tell him?" Hana turned crimson red instantly. Hana pressed her index fingers together and said, "Please don't tell him, I want to be the one to tell him." "Oh, it's alright. I find it kind of hard not to like him." She smiled at her toes and said, "I want to wait till it seems less weird to ask him." She nodded and resumed petting the puppies, saying, "It's great if you don't look at him when we're fighting." The home of Naruto. Naruto simply walked into his own home and headed straight for the scroll room. He entered and proceeded to the center of the room for the orange scroll. When he opened it, kanji started to appear. "It's been a little while, Naruto." Naruto started writing after biting his thumb. "In any case, my sensei just granted me permission to take the Chunin exams after I became a ninja a few days ago." "You're taking the Chunin tests, right? You have been a genin for how long? Moreover, who is your sensei?" "A guy named Kakashi and I have been genin for a few days." "Is Kakashi your mentor?" "Since I was his sensei, he most likely desired to instruct your team." "You have been a genin for a few days, so wait, congratulations on becoming a genin. Now pay close attention to the scroll I left for you beneath the chair. I made it myself and I really liked using this jutsu." "Alright, I'll look it over and see you, Dad. We'll talk after the tests." "Alright. Keep in mind that teamwork should be prioritized over all else during the exam, never abandon your friends." Alright, see you later. After shutting the scroll, Naruto moved beneath the chair. A scroll, light blue and red, lay beneath it. After retrieving it, Naruto held it up to the light. Rasengan. Naruto placed the scroll in his ninja pouch, then hurried back out of the house after gathering scrolls on tag team jutsus for Hana, taijutsu for Idate, and wind ninjutsus for him. Several days later, Team 4 is preparing like there is no tomorrow for the exams, which are just one day away. Naruto has been studying the strange Rasengan and wind jutsu. It had a lot more kick than one of his chakra pulse punches. Idate is moving at crazy speeds and has doubled his leg weights, studying taijutsu styles that are derived from clan techniques. Yandaime's scrolls taught Hana and her ninja pups new jutsu and more of her clan's techniques. She also helped Idate and Naruto comprehend them. They are just wrapping up their training, and tomorrow was Friday. Idate, panting, remarked, "Phew, that was tough, I don't think I've never trained so hard." Naruto, panting, added, "Well, we've never taken the Chunin exams before, but I'm guessing that it will be tough, so I'm glad we did." Sitting down to catch her breath, Hana remarked, "Yeah, but we all got to work together, it's either we all pass or we all fail." Before the other two nodded, Naruto remarked, "That's going to be easier said than done, but we'll try." Hana waved Naruto-kun over and said, "Hey, can I talk to you?" Idate waved and hurried away, saying, "Well, I got to go. See you guys tomorrow at the academy." Naruto approached her and they sat down together. "I know this will be kind of random, but I need to ask you. In a few years when our age difference doesn't matter, would you go out with me?" Naruto gazed incredulously at the Inuzuka. "After all the stuff you know about me, you still want to go out with me?" Hana gave a nod. After giving it some thought, Naruto grinned broadly and spoke. "Of course I would go out with you. You're alright with waiting the few years?" Hana quickly tackled the blonde who was embracing him. "I would wait forever for you to go out with me." Hana gives Naruto a brief, 1-second kiss on the lips before he can speak. "I have to go now, bye." After assisting Naruto in getting up, Hana fled, followed closely by her gray puppies. Naruto thought as he touched his lips, "Why must I be 3 years her junior?" Naruto walked back wishing that the date had happened sooner if he had been a little older. The following day, all 4 of the team members entered the academy at 2:45. A group circled a door as they walked up and around the staircases. At last, they made their way into the room where roughly 20 other genin were seated. They approached the wall to the right of the door in silence, leaned against it, and started planning. "Okay, I suggest we split up the Haimaru siblings, that way we all have a good sense of smell and an extra pair of eyes in case we get split up." Hana made the suggestion. After giving each other a nod, the 3 placed one of the puppies on their heads. "Remember, either we all pass or we all fail, we all need each other," said Naruto. The front of the room was suddenly filled with a voice, "Alright everyone, shut up." After an hour, awaiting the 10th question, the 3 members of Team 4 sat anxiously. One of Hana's ninja puppies was on each of their heads as they were separated. They were waiting for the 10th question after having to steal the answers while hiding in a classroom. Let me just say now that the question has some drawbacks. You can choose to quit now and play it safe. But if you choose to answer the question, then one of your teammates will fail and never become Chunin. Raise your hand if you want to wait till next year. After searching their surroundings, the 3 kid genin nodded to one another. The 3 of them raised their hands shakily and left. There was only one other group that followed suit. Heads dangling, they descended until the door was opened. Every unsuccessful participant filed out and shut the door. They were about to turn to leave when they heard a voice behind them. When the 6 turned around, Idate's brother was grinning at them and saying, "You all chose well, you pass." Naruto said, bewildered, "Wait, what? You're going to have to run that by me again." With a growing smirk, the scarred man gestured inside the classroom. They all peered in and started to listen. "Well, since no one looks like they're about to quit, it looked like you all fail." When the Ibiki in the classroom burst into white smoke and vanished from view, there was a fit of rage. The proctor said as the 6 genin turned to face him in the hallway. "Since there are only 2 teams left, we will have to skip the 2nd exam and go to the 3rd. In 1 month, come to the stadium in the middle of the village. There you will compete in one-on-one fight between the 2 teams. We'll explain more later, but now you're free to go." 1 girl and 2 boys made up the opposing genin team. One of them had a few hairs sticking out the center of their headband, which was wrapped around their head like a bandana. He was wearing a long, sleeved turtleneck shirt with a blue stripe around the arms. The other was covered in 3 bandages, 2 on his cheeks and 1 on his chin, and his nose was swollen. On his back were 2 large kunai. However, the girl wore a brown skirt, a black shirt, fishnet around her legs, and purple hair. Her face was sullen, and she wore a wooden necklace around her neck. The bandana-wearing boy said something. Pointing to them, he remarked, "Aren't you kids a little young for the Chunin exams?" "So?" Idate asked. The 2 genin's eyes widened as they gazed at the miniature Yondaime. "So why are you trying to become Chunin?" "The blonde kid looks like he's 5. I am 5 years old." The purple-haired girl's eyes widened when Naruto grinned broadly. She said to him, "See, can I talk to you alone?" Naruto gave a stupid nod as the other members of the group turned to look at her. The 2 moved away from the group and stood close to a different door. The blonde nodded once more. "You're the kid with the Kyuubi sealed in him, right?" she asked. She looked down as she leaned against the wall. Naruto gazed up at her with a curious and astonished expression on his face. "How are you so happy? I would have broken by now if I had to go through that for my whole life. Not that I don't now. My first sensei was a bad person. He left the village with me and he betrayed me. Now everyone treats me badly, maybe as bad as you. How are you at all happy?" "I'm miserable," she replied. Naruto leaned against the wall next to her, looking down. "I guess to tell you the truth, I'm not really happy all the time. I just happen to smile a lot so the people I care about don't worry about me. Don't you have someone that you care about?" After staring at him for a moment, the girl looked down to reflect. "The Hokage, I guess," Naruto said with a small smile. "Me too, the old man has done a lot for me, also my teammates. And when I think about them it just makes me smile sometimes." After giving it some thought, the girl grinned broadly. "I guess you're right, thanks." Naruto nodded before the girl seized him in a tight embrace. She smiled without moving. She said, "I'll see you around." And then she started to walk back, Naruto following. Team 4's 2 genin gazed at Naruto in confusion. "It's alright, she just needed to ask me something." "Then why did she hug you?" Hana inquired. Naruto scratched the back of his head, blushed, and pondered for a moment. He said, she needed one?" Hana's eyes narrowed. She crossed her arms and said, "Fine." Naruto turned to watch the opposing team leave. He shouted, "Oi, I didn't catch your names." The ninja with the bandana headband said as they turned. The ninja with the bandage then introduced himself as Kamizuki Izumo. "I'm Higane Katetsu." Before shouting, the purple-haired girl gave them a dramatic point. "I'm Mitarashi Anko. You better watch out before I kick all your asses." After the other 5 stopped perspiring, the team left, with Team 4 following. After a few minutes, an enraged genin mob followed the 6 genin as they fled the academy. The fact that they had traveled all the way to Konoha only to be eliminated in the first round clearly upset them, and the other competitors did not take it well. The ninja separated after a few brief waves, which also caused the mob to split up. After scuttling through the streets and avoiding alleys, they arrived at Naruto's house and entered. Idate let his gaze roam around the interior of the building and remarked, "This is your house? Wow, it's pretty big." Naruto retreated to one of the adjacent rooms after saying, "Yeah, I just need to do something quick, guys." Naruto opened his favorite scroll as soon as he entered the scroll room. "How were the exams, yo Naruto?" After reading the kanji, the blonde bit his thumb and started writing in the area beneath it. "I completed the exam's first section successfully." He claimed that one member of my team would be permanently genin if we attempted to answer the 10th question correctly. "We all stay genin forever if we get it wrong." However, when he asked, we all left early, and the real guy was waiting outside. He stated that we had 1 month to complete the 3rd section of the test and that we were exempt from the second part. His father formed a reaction as the blood seeped in. "The fact that you were exempt from the second portion of the test is quite fortunate. Out of the entire exam, that has the most casualties. What number of teams remain?" Then Naruto started inking more kanji characters on the scroll. "When I first met the opposing team, the girl appeared quite depressed, but I was able to lift her spirits. Well, I am and always will be proud of you. What else can I say?" After giving it some thought, Naruto started writing. "Hana Inuzuka, one of my teammates, is 3 years older than me, but she asked me yesterday if I would like to go out with her when we get older." Before more kanji started to arrive, Naruto allowed his statement to sink in. "And Inuzuka? Interesting. Tell me how it goes when the time comes, and is there anything else you would like to share? I'll talk to you after the exams and keep an eye out for that Jiraiya guy, but that's all." "Okay. See you later." Just as his teammates and the puppies entered, Naruto rolled up the scroll and set it on the table. Idate looked around and remarked, So this is your dad's scroll room. Wow, it's pretty big. What's that? Hana asked, gesturing to the scroll that Naruto had just set down. My dad left me this scroll. It is like an interactive scroll. If I begin writing stuff into it, things my father would say would come out cool, huh? The other two gave a nod and started scanning the area. Hana looked at the scrolls and remarked, there are a lot of elemental jutsus here, huh? After giving a nod, Naruto approached a drawer. He took out 3 slips of paper after opening it. As he explained, he handed them to his teammates. These slips of paper are called elemental paper. If you put chakra into them, you can figure out what is your element. And with the help of these scrolls, we can learn a bunch of easy techniques. Just force a little chakra into them and I'll tell you what element you have. Both of them nodded and flinched. Idate has scrunched up, and Hana has crumbled into rock. Hana, yours is earth, and Idate, yours is lightning. Mine is wind. Random scrolls were picked up by Naruto as he moved around the room, stacking them in his arms until he was unable to see over them. He wandered aimlessly until he located the table in the center of the space and put them all down. Idate told the others, how about we divide up for training this month so we can all concentrate on learning techniques? Do you guys mind? I do have a jutsu that my father gave me specifically, Naruto replied. Hana scratched her dog's heads and said, I'm fine with it. I should probably ask my mom to help me with my clan's jutsus. So it's decided then, we'll all train separately until the day of the exams, alright? The 3 nodded. You guys could use the scroll room if you like, just don't open the interactive scroll, please? The 2 others grinned and nodded. With a wave, they departed after Naruto assisted them in sealing their scrolls into containment scrolls. Naruto sat down, sighed, and kicked his feet up on the table. He raised his right hand and caused the chakra to flow around it, eventually turning into a spiky ring. Naruto experimented with speeding it up and slowing it down to practice controlling his chakras. What do I have to learn to pass the exams? He asked. The chakra pulse works, but it's not a powerful blow. The chakra then exploded when the blonde chose to simply release it. How about defense? I have nothing in case their attacks are more powerful than I anticipated. Naruto took a hand and ran it across his stomach. Kyuubi. In search of a history scroll, Naruto stood up and started to move past the scrolls. Although he was never interested in history, having a kitsune implanted in oneself can occasionally alter one. Eventually, he discovered a black and red scroll that appeared to be gathering more dust than anything else. The Kyuubi no Kitsune was written in kanji on it. With caution, Naruto removed it and placed it on the table. Carefully opening it, he started reading, determined to finish it by tomorrow. The following day, the sun was just beginning to peek through Konoha's trees and reach everything in the area. The Namikaze house's only occupants' eyelids were illuminated by sunlight that entered through the window. When Naruto opened his eyes, he discovered that he had dozed off while reading the scroll. The previous evening, he completed the scroll, and the next day, he vanished like a flash of light. It just so happened that the Kyuubi was a fascinating subject. The boy admits that the fox did give him a lot of trouble, but he also admits that he didn't want to fight it before it was sealed. The Kyuubi's willingness to do whatever it took to survive was one of the things that Naruto found fascinating. He was determined not to die or give up. Coincidentally, Naruto could become extremely powerful if he could find a valid reason to enlist the Kyuubi's aid. However, the seal was the only issue. He could tell from the Yondaime's notes scrawled onto the scroll as tidbits that his father had done a damn good job on the seal. The Kyuubi were simply powerful beings. At first, that might not seem impressive, but that is only until you realize how much that means. You should hope that you don't obstruct the process of transforming raw chakra into pure chakra. Therefore, the question of becoming Hokage would simply be, how old are you? If he could learn to control Kyuubi's chakra or make his chakra similar to Kyuubi's. Naruto scowled. However, in order to let it through, he had to break the seal, which could only be accomplished by an outburst of intense feelings, like the loss of a friend. He used that power to protect his friends because he didn't want any of them to perish. No, he wasn't discussing gaining power, as some Uchiha members do. Some of them, particularly the girls, were fine in his classes. Because he was a prodigy, Naruto was quite popular, but he did not allow them to call him that. Hell, without Hana and Idate's assistance, he would still be enrolled in the academy. However, with all that unadulterated strength, he could defeat his adversaries just by glancing at them. It would be fantastic. However, after concluding his thoughts, he sat up and started walking. Perhaps he will be fortunate enough to experience another event that could set it off. When Naruto opened the door to go for a walk, a man wearing Junin armor was standing there with his hand raised as though to knock. Naruto found it strange that this man appeared to be about 11 years old. His jet black hair parted in the middle, allowing his headband's insignia to be seen clearly. In addition, he had two dark onyx eyes that were surprised by the early opening of the door. When Naruto said that, the two looked at one another for a while. Hi. The boy was roused from his daze and forced to put on a sympathetic expression. Naruto nodded and said, "Hello, Uzumaki Naruto, right? Well, I'm Uchiha Itachi." Naruto's mind was illuminated by the name. Naruto put his hand to his chin and started to consider the various instances in which he might have heard the name. "Wait a sec, I remember that name from somewhere," he said. Naruto said, opening his eyes. "Wait a sec, Kakashi. Sensei said something about me beating you in graduating time, right?" Itachi gave a nod. He closed his eyes and grinned more broadly, saying, "Yeah, you beat me by 2 years." Naruto used this time to take a closer look at his attire. "Why are you in Junin clothes? You look like you're around 11 years old," he responded. Itachi's eyes opened, and a small smile spread across his face. Itachi let go of his smirk and spoke in a slightly more commanding tone, saying, "Well, that's because I am Junin." Both smirked inwardly at that particular recollection. "I remember that last year you actually were able to knock out an Anbu member." Itachi recalled the intense training and taunting that man had endured. Sending the man to the academy was the main joke. After that, Tenzo became furious and vowed to exact revenge on the young blonde who had paid tenfold. "And I wanted to meet you firsthand as a fellow kid," he said. Since it seems that everyone who graduated at a typical age refers to them as kid, kiddo, youngster, and a variety of other terms, Naruto and Itachi's eyes narrowed as well. Naruto grinned and Itachi returned the smile, saying, "Well, thanks, I'm glad someone acknowledges my work." Naruto continued to smile as he spoke. "Well, thanks Itachi-san, I'll see you later, I have to go train for the Chunin exams." As the door was closing, the Uchiha noticed that and grabbed it. Whoa, the Chunin exams? As in the Chunin exams? Yeah, all the other genin were failed except me and another group, so they're skipping right to the third part of the exam. Something wrong?" Itachi uttered the words, "Oh, nothing," but was secretly crying fake tears as he said, "This kid is showing me up in all my records." The Uchiha paused for a moment before asking, "Hey, how would you like some training by me?" With a raised eyebrow, Naruto spoke. "Really?" Then Itachi spoke. "Sure, why not?" At once, Naruto broke into a broad smile. He yelled for Itachi to catch up or he would be left behind as soon as he shut the door. Even for a normal person, he seems too energetic for a Jinchuriki. Training areas. The two young ninjas showed up at a less used training area. A river ran directly through the field, which was surrounded by trees with a few trees emerging in the center. Although Itachi put one hand on his sword, he remained still and said, "Okay kid," Naruto growled at Itachi as he said that, making Itachi snicker lightly, "Show me what you got." About 15 feet away, Naruto leapt back and started blowing through hand seals. He did this by raising his right hand, bringing his thumb and index finger together. Futon. Daitopa. Watching without his Sharingan, Itachi saw a powerful gust the size of a house fly in his direction as the wind started to pick up from his hand. After removing his hand from his sword, Itachi quickly went through his jutsu's hand seals and slammed his hands to the ground. Itachi yelled, "Doden! Dorogashi!" as he saw a rectangle of dirt rise up and separate from the surrounding dirt. Itachi was only 5 feet away when the barrier took the blow, and that was the last thing he saw. The outside of the rock started to crack, and the wind started to erode the sides. As the wind started to lessen, Itachi was about to glance around the wall when a chakra burst through it, revealing Naruto flying through it with his fist outstretched. As Naruto advanced with another blow, Itachi noticed the move and started to question what the genin had just done. Itachi crouched down and turned on his 3-tomo Sharingan without making a sound. He raised one eyebrow when he witnessed the chakra rise in Naruto's fist and be forced out of the tenketsus in his hands. Itachi pushed his center of gravity back from this crouching position, catching the ground beneath him with his hands, and then thrust him towards Naruto's feet, blasting him in the gut first. After being blasted back through the wall's opening, Naruto continued to sail. Itachi turned off his Sharingan and swung forward, landing on his feet with the help of his feet's momentum. When the Uchiha looked up, he saw Naruto slap his hands together and grin while still in the air. Futon. Repusho. Naruto pushed his arms forward and brought his open hands back to his chest. 2 gusts of wind rushed through the opening and headed for Itachi. With just a second left, Itachi started to turn around. However, one of the wind gusts struck Itachi's left hand, causing the arm to be blasted back, causing Itachi to rise from the ground in a spinning heap in the direction of one of the inner trees. As this was happening, Naruto swung his feet back and crunched down on one of the outer trees. With a grunt, Naruto fell to his hands and knees on the ground as the force briefly stung his legs. Naruto saw Itachi flying into a tree when he looked up, but he managed to catch himself just in time to land on his feet after one of his hands swung the other way. Taking advantage of the moment, Naruto leapt to his feet, brandished a kunai, and started running in the direction of the fallen Junin. When Itachi saw Naruto running full speed with kunai when he looked up from his landing, he reacted instantly and removed the sword from his shoulder in time to block the vertical strike. Itachi took a moment to speak as the two stood erect, their blades grinding against one another. "Very good, Naruto. You are very well chunin material. Maybe I should stop giving you all these freebies." As Naruto snarled, Itachi grinned, but he then angled his blade, causing Naruto's kunai to slide to the edge. After drawing his sword, Itachi cut Naruto's cheek. The Uchiha was caught off guard when he vanished in a cloud of smoke, as they had anticipated seeing blood. A shadow clone. Upon performing a series of hand seals, Itachi turned to face the crippled wall and saw the real Naruto leap up from behind it and charge once more, this time with a fist back ready to release another slug of chakra. Itachi yelled, and Naruto skidded to a halt. Kaden. Housenka no Jutsu. Itachi released a flurry of tiny fireballs that flew in Naruto's direction. Naruto swerved to the left to avoid the first few, then jumped to the right to avoid the next. In order to avoid the first two waves, Naruto simply threw his head back and performed a matrix. The final wave was a much more complex form. Insert slow motion camera now. When Naruto looked down, he saw another graze his left shoulder and another go under him from the heat, nearly setting his battle coat on fire. Thankful that his coat was spared, Naruto hissed in pain as the fireball burned his shoulder a little. Slow motion release. Naruto then fell to the ground without much of a splash. With a painful grip on his shoulder, Naruto looked up to see Itachi's form, sword drawn, eclipse the sun. An adrenaline rush caused Naruto to temporarily forget about his burning shoulder rolling on his good shoulder and pushing away with his arm's strength. Itachi was already performing more hand signals when Naruto flipped his legs beneath him and landed on the ground feet first. Naruto turned to face his shoulder, where his healing skin was visible through a burnt hole in his coat. Itachi's words caught the blonde's attention. Kaden. Gukakyu no Jutsu. A much larger fireball was summoned and hurled in Naruto's direction. Itachi became a little concerned as he saw the blonde appear to be swallowed by the fireball. A charred log and Naruto's battle cloak tossed aside were visible when the fire subsided. Itachi assumed Naruto must have sought refuge in the small forest with the river when he turned to look back. It's true that Naruto was hiding in the trees, leaning against a tall branch while panting and clutching his shoulder. A Biju can only do so much, but his healing factor was doing well. Naruto extracted a bandage big enough to cover the wound and a healing ointment from his pouch. Naruto was wearing the same blue sweatpants and sweatshirt that ninjas wore when they walked around Konoha, along with the shin, wrist, and arm protectors that his father also owned. In order to avoid alerting Itachi to his location, Naruto applied the cream carefully and refrained from snarling. Itachi was by no means a pushover, and Naruto sighed inwardly. He deserved the Junin gear he was wearing at the time. To ensure it wouldn't come off, the blonde slid the patch over the burn, which was now healing, and patted it down. Naruto almost let out a gasp when he saw Itachi simply standing there after daring himself to look down from the branch. Then, in order to at least escape the trees, Naruto started to devise a scheme to divert attention. Naruto had just finished creating cage buncheons for Itachi to pursue when he felt a sudden sensation against his right shoulder. Although it wasn't steady like a wind, it felt more like panting than air. It seemed to Naruto that someone was observing him from a distance of 3 inches. Naruto slowly turned his head to see Itachi, who appeared to be from an old monster movie, holding a flashlight beneath his chin. Boo. With a scream, Naruto immediately veered off to the left branch. Naruto turned to see Itachi laughing as he flew back. He only grinned after taking a deep breath. When Itachi stopped laughing, he looked up to see a picture that was nearly identical to the one he had seen earlier. Now that he was full of air, Naruto started to gather chakra in his lungs. Naruto said as his right hand extended. Futon. Renkuden. Naruto slammed his right hand against his chest, causing the blonde to exhale. Itachi's eye grew wide, and he had just a second to avoid the basketball-sized ball of concentrated wind. Itachi leapt to the far end of the branch and looked back to see the compressed air blasting and tearing a huge chunk out of the side of the tree he was close to. Just as Naruto was about to do it twice more, Itachi turned to face him. Just missing the two projectiles that struck the branch and destroyed it, the Junin leapt up to a branch above him. Itachi turned to watch him launch a final projectile at him that was significantly bigger than the others' heads. Naruto witnessed Itachi being blasted away during a massive explosion, only to watch him collapse into a mangled log. After landing on a distant branch, Naruto started searching wildly for his opponent. He noticed Itachi performing hand seals and saying something, which drew his attention to the nearby river. Sweden. Swegaden. Itachi was surrounded by 5 tiny whirlpools, from which torrents of water in the shape of a drill emerged and moved in Naruto's direction. The blonde shouted and made a hand gesture. Kage Bunshin no Jutsu. A puff of smoke burst forth, and 20 Naruto clones emerged. They all leapt out of the way of the drills at the same moment and started to divide up around the forest. Upon landing, every clone leapt in the direction of the Uchiha. The drills eliminated a few clones, but the remaining ones were now very near, so Itachi stopped the jutsu. With his sword drawn, Itachi started slicing through the clones. After 5 clones, Itachi decided to call it quits because he was growing weary. Itachi sheathed his sword and pulled out some kunai as he floated in midair after activating his Sharingan. Itachi flipped over and started to concentrate. He launched the kunai on the clone massacre a moment later. After embedding themselves in clones, kunai turned into barriers that allowed other kunai to bounce off into more clones. Naruto hid behind a tree and listened to his clones being destroyed one by one, but he wasn't afraid of that. Images of kunai embedded in his arms, legs, and torso flashed through his mind as he recalled dying. They must be the memories of my clone. Naruto's thoughts were interrupted when he witnessed 2 kunai clash in front of him. His face was then the target of one of the kunai. In an instant, Naruto fell to the ground, allowing the kunai to embed itself in the spot where his head had been. Naruto felt cold metal being held against his neck as he prepared to leap out of there. When he turned around, he saw Itachi grinning gratefully at him. Excellent Naruto, you are indeed shonen material. Itachi sheathed his sword and let go of the blonde. With a worried expression, Naruto inquired. Hey, wait a sec, you're still going to train me, right? With a nod, Itachi gestured for Naruto to follow him. Naruto, I would like to talk to you about that time when you broke through the barrier at the beginning of the fight. Your taijutsu kind of reminded me of Tsunade of the Sanins. Naruto looked perplexed and commented to Itachi that he was unsure of who that person was. All you need to know was that she had possibly the highest chakra control levels and using it to achieve super strength in the world, and there are very few people who could recreate that. You obviously do not have those chakra levels, and that's the problem. You are severely injuring the Tenketsus, and if you kept doing it, it could harm your Tenketsus permanently. When this happened, Naruto was shocked because his taijutsu was essentially his only backup plan in case things got personal. Wait, so I can't use chakra pulse anymore? After giving it some thought, Itachi said. The explanation ended with Naruto looking a little happier. Well, not entirely. Eventually you will have the chakra control for it. We're just going to have to teach you about Kage Bunshins, then we'll make a few moves so you can use them whenever you want. Not really a style, more like organized brawling. Without delay, he stood up and spoke. Itachi looked at the boy, who was covered in cuts, burns, and bruises, and said, I'm ready, Itachi. Sensei. Before returning for more. We had a long month ahead of us. The KIA monument. The Morino turned to see his sensei returning holding something. Idate, he said. Throughout his first meeting with Kakashi yesterday, Idate has been practicing swiping motions and gathering chakra in the palm of his hand. He was carrying what appeared to be a short sword that was strapped to his back. Grabbing the hilt, Kakashi produced a tanto. I'm going to teach you this and a few other things, Kakashi said, lifting the sword and slashing it down. Before it crashed to the ground, slashing an additional 3 feet from the point where the blade struck. A white chakra that hung from it gave the impression that it was longer. This belonged to my father, the White Fang of Konoha. Compounds from Inuzuka. The Inuzuka screamed, Suga, as she transformed into a human corkscrew and started to fly in the direction of her adversary. As Hana sprinted in her mother's direction, she narrowly avoided her at the last second. Okay Hana, that's enough for physical training. Sume replied. As she asked, Hana landed beside her mother and glanced around to find the Haimaru siblings. So we're doing more than just physical training? With a nod, Sume removed 2 scrolls from her pouch. One that read, Doten, and the other that read, I, which stood for, Doctor. The first one was obvious to Hana, but the second one raised some questions for her. The Inuzuka matriarch spoke after noticing her bewilderment. You Hana have excellent chakra control, much higher than others in the compound. I want you to learn the basics for medical jutsu as a med.nin and a veterinarian for the compound. It will help you later in life. As she spoke, Hana glanced down at the scroll Sume had thrown her, and when she looked up, she nodded resolutely. But given this brief opportunity, Sume stated. This made the now present nin dogs and Sume herself snicker. You can save your boyfriend from death on the battlefield with that. Ka-san, screamed Hana, with a growl. Through the grasses, trees, and overturned earth of the previous day, the steady wind continued to whistle past the beaten training ground. Standing in a lone tree with a view of the open space where the remnants of a damaged wall, burn marks, and pieces of wind chakra remained throughout the night was a lone boy who was not even 12 years old. The lone boy, a prodigy of his kind, allowed his impressionable mind to reflect on the more difficult periods of his life, recalling failed missions and the deaths of people he knew and loved. As they were wheeled into the hospital one by one, many of his loved ones had also died as a result of the conflict between his hometown and another. He waited for the blonde, who was responsible for a large portion of the destruction he witnessed today, to arrive at the designated time in the morning. Itachi then went on to a memory that was more recent. Many of his peers approached him when he switched to Junin and asked if he would join a squad. They reasoned that his youthfulness would make it too difficult for him to instruct someone who was probably older than him, but they also thought that some of his greatness might be passed on to his charge.ins. Rather, he continued to pursue A-rank missions, and as a result, he is among the best. In an attempt to be installed as an Anbu commander, even his own superior, the Hokage, was now in contact with the commander. Now, however, he had to make a very difficult decision. How can I instruct him? That, in short, was the issue. When he first started, the blonde was a mystery. Using weights was an easy and efficient option, but he was too young to succeed. Humans don't begin to gain muscle mass until they reach puberty, and Naruto was only half that old. Itachi allowed himself to regress to his younger self, Naruto's age. Because he was half 6 and his teammates were at the typical graduating age of 12, they hated him. His skill lay in the speed and accuracy of every blow he delivered after a great deal of effort. He was far more nimble and shrewd than his teammates, who used brute force. Naruto may be superior due to his incredibly large chakra supply, but he had many of the same implicates. In fact, his amount was double that of a low Junin. However, his control is fascinating. Because he didn't have as much chakra as he would later, the blonde was able to learn the tree walking exercise early on from one of the young boy's stories. It would take him a lot longer to get it if he waited until he was 12. Perhaps an entire day instead of his ostensibly brief moment in the spotlight. Now that he has a high level of control, all he needs to do is keep strengthening it as he gains strength and performs numerous chakra exercises to keep up with his rapidly growing supply of chakras. In relation to chakra supply, the shadow clones he demonstrated yesterday are very beneficial. They concluded after their session that he has good control and can make roughly 200 of them before becoming fatigued. That is a huge plus because Itachi was aware of the shadow clones' bonuses, and if he uses them properly, Naruto might become a Junin even sooner than anyone could have imagined. But that was a big step forward, and Itachi will make it very clear that Naruto shouldn't use this frequently because it could permanently harm the blonde's developing brain. Having the necessary experience for the level is a requirement for becoming a Junin. Even if you are at cage level, you will struggle if you lack experience. Additionally, Naruto seems intelligent. Perhaps the Kyuubi is interested in the child and gave him some upgrades when he used his chakra. He made some adjustments because the Kyuubi inside might have been awakened by the chakra activation. Itachi shook his head. He was straying from the subject and there were too many moving parts for him to start speculating about a strong demon that was sealed into a child using the Shinigami's very power. Then it occurred to Itachi how he knew Kage Bunshin. Perhaps he could make the clones more destructive by including a small detail about them. The Uchiha looked down to see Naruto wearing a long blue shirt and pants, a shuriken holster, and a kunai pouch. Oi, Itachi. Sensei. He was missing his white coat, but his arm guards were still tied around his arms and beneath his shirt as usual. Itachi chuckled and said, "What? No battle coat this time, instead." Naruto snarled softly as he recalled his decision to forego the coat that day. Rewind. Now that he was dressed, Naruto was preparing a quick breakfast that was healthier than his usual ramen. Although Naruto detested the sizzling vegetables in the ramen cup, ninjas had to eat them. He therefore dressed to look like a typical brown-haired boy with green eyes when he returned home with his battle-worn coat, and he purchased some vegetable ramen to meet all of his needs. Since this was the first time it had happened, Naruto did not anticipate it. He was spinning around with a steaming hot cup of instant vegetable ramen when his cloak stepped on it. Now that the cloak was securely fastened, Naruto's upper body was drawn downward, causing him to fall with his ramen directly in front of his face. Naruto screamed while the ramen sizzled his face. Ah! Naruto wiped his face with his coat collar, attempting to relieve the stinging pain. Openly cursing at the coat and ramen, Naruto hurriedly threw them to the couch. End of the flashback. Can we just start, Itachi-sensei? Itachi let another snicker come to life and fell to the ground. Alright Naruto, to start off with your training I'm going to show you how I'm going to train you. You have to remember the way I'm going to be training you is very dangerous and I will not allow you to do this on a regular basis, agreed? When he was done, Naruto nodded, staring intently at his teacher. Would Itachi only permit Naruto to train during curtain time? Alright Itachi-sensei. Did you notice anything near the end of the fight when I was dispatching your clones? Itachi responded. Naruto's thoughts returned to him as he recalled the past. I remember you killing me, my clone's memories, he inquired. The Uchiha gave a nod. Kage Bunshin no Jutsu is a technique used for scouting. You can send a clone out to a position and when it disperses the memories return to you and you can retain the information. Naruto's eyes glistened with delight. He told himself to thank his father's scroll for this amazing jutsu. Then the Uchiha's eyes widened. You must remember Naruto. Memories, thoughts, everything that your clones do is being blasted into your mind. Anyone could guess that a child going through this on a regular basis that was a bad thing to do. Before posing the question, Naruto appeared to pause and consider. So what are you exactly going to teach me though? The little training area was filled with silence. With a sheepish expression, the Uchiha scratched the back of his head in a childlike manner. Well, I don't really know what to teach you. The blonde gazed at his sensei in confusion, his mouth hanging open. He says he doesn't know what to teach me after that awesome description. Then, Naruto briefly considered the possibility that this man wasn't as cool as he had assumed. His hand briefly touched the kunai pouch on his hip before swinging limp down to his side, still confused. Suddenly, Naruto remembered the scroll after impulsively going through the list of things it contains. Recalling the scroll, Naruto reached into the pouch, took out the red and light blue scroll, and took another look at the title. The Rasengan. Itachi glanced down at the scroll and said, Oi Itachi. Sensei, what about this? A question about what jutsu it might contain raised an eyebrow. With little to no effort, Naruto threw it to the Uchiha, who caught it. His eyes widened significantly as he glanced down at the title. He recalled from Kakashi Senpai's lectures that the Rasengan was one of the Yondaime's signature moves. He carefully unfolded the scroll, and the Yondaime's handwriting confirmed his suspicions about the jutsu's workings. He said, Naruto, where did you get this? Legendary jutsus are not found on the streets. Naruto simply turned his head and paused to reflect. Naruto in a contemplative pose. I think the old man gave it to me. I don't know, it was a while ago. However, Itachi continued to hold the open scroll while staring at him. Perhaps the Sandaime gave it to him, he sighed, but his staring was unsuccessful because the blonde avoided his stare. If not, he should be able to find out where he got it from the Hokage. He went back to the scroll and saw that each of the 3 steps required a certain item. To get a lot of water balloons, rubber balls, and ordinary balloons, he would have to run to the city's shopping center. Naruto, I have to go to the shopping center to get some supplies for this training. I'll be gone for a while. Why don't you wander around nearby and I'll find you when I'm done? He turned and headed for the shopping center without waiting for a response. The blonde eventually snarled when he realized that all of his efforts to arrive early, including the face.to ramen stunt, had been in vain. He sighed, unable to find a way to vent his rage, and fled to the village, where he was concealed among the leaves. The blonde wandered the streets, observing everything the locals had purchased. When someone yelled at him, he was stopped by his inner thoughts about civilian clothes, food, and appliances. Naruto turned and saw a huge man far away waving him in, saying, Oi, blonde-haired Gaki. He rushed forward, disregarding caution. Naruto's eyebrows twitched as he said, Quickly, come to our store before everything sells out because of our youthfulness. Would anyone ever need to use the word youngness in their lifetime, or is it even a word? The store was small, about the size of a small house, with the store taking up the bottom floor. The man was tall, bald, and had enormous eyebrows. He wore a green tunic and darker green pants. Instead of ignoring him, however, Naruto started to approach. After all, no one else would call out to him to come buy anything, much less sell him anything. Ninja supplies of youthfulness. read the sign. The fact that there was nobody inside didn't surprise him. The big man bellowed, "My name is Maeda Shin, and this is my store." Naruto turned back to face him, beaming broadly. The blonde walked in and started exploring the store. Although he could tell that the equipment was not the best, it was still far superior to his own rusty, an interesting kunai. He mentally reviewed a list of the items he would need for his chosen line of work. The man brightened even more when he asked, "Do you have any clothing?" But that was conceivable. Naruto trailed the man as he ran faster than he believed he could to a clothing line at the other end of the store. They were all different colored jumpsuits. Naruto started to move through the clothes, feeling the extremely stretchy fabric. Looking back at the man who was still grinning, Naruto reasoned that he must be the first customer in a long time, or rather, the first person to enter the store in a long time, based on the quality of the items and the clothes he was wearing. "Do you have anything that consists of pants and a shirt instead of the same thing in a one-piece?" Naruto asked the smiling man. The blonde saw the man's face turn sad and began to cry, so Naruto tried to take it back right away. "No, it's not that I don't like them, it's just I think it's easier to get on," Naruto said. To the surprise of the Yondaime's son, the man ran over and gave him a back-breaking hug, saying, "I am a failure. Nobody enjoys coming into my store or the items I sell." At this point, Naruto was being shaken from side to side by the enormous man, who was using him as a rag doll. Naruto attempted to approach him. "I don't consider that," as he was being shaken about, he said, but the man stopped shaking him and gave him a death stare. Really? Naruto was forced to look away from the puffy, red, and teary eyes. Naruto waited while the man considered what he had to say. "Why? Yeah, maybe if you could get some different clothing, some equipment with more quality and turn down the youthfulness a little, I think you will get more customers." They pulled Naruto back into a hug. "Obviously, I must be radiating too much youthfulness and turning people away," the man remarked. "Thank you, young shinobi Gaki. I will spread youth all over the world with your guidance." When the store abruptly turned into a rocky cast, Naruto watched in horror and awe as a breaker smashed into the rocks behind them, splattering water all over the place. Naruto's genjutsu guess came to an end, and the boy was placed down. "Do you promise to come to my store? Only if you get that jumpsuit to be a little more separated and baggy, along with some other things I would like to get today," Naruto said after giving it some thought. He gestured to a midnight black jumpsuit, and the store owner nodded while glancing between him and the jumpsuit. "How skilled are you at stitching, too?" Afterwards, Naruto waved as he left the store with his new outfit, which included a looser fitting black jumpsuit with the Kyuubi no Kitsune displaying its 9 tails along the left leg, as well as white arm and shin guards with red flames rising from the ends. Shin claimed that Sama, whoever he was, used the scrolls on either side of his hips. He kind of liked Shin overall, and he will definitely come back for more weapons. In other places, after passing the Hokage's secretary, the Uchiha prodigy walked the short distance to his office, from which the cage managed to flee for Itachi. The Hokage, who he could only assume was the Anbu commander wearing a ram's porcelain mask, was waiting for him when he arrived at the door and opened it with a slight creak after a year of service. Itachi bowed deeply to him, saying, "Hokage Sama." The Hokage nodded, but the Anbu kept staring at the boy. "Itachi-kun, this is the Anbu commander, and he has agreed to make you one of our Anbu." Itachi bowed once more, looking shocked. Itachi turned to the Hokage with a displeased expression on his face and said, "Thank you for accepting me into your regime's Anbu Sama." The man simply nodded and vanished. "Hokage Sama, why did you sign me up to become Anbu? I do not want to be a part of it." As he gazed intently at the young boy, the old man's face darkened. "Itachi, you are the only person I can trust with the Uchiha at the moment. I recall that you informed me of your family's plans and that the only way to stop them would be for you to enroll in the Anbu." Pushing back from the desk, the elderly man reached into one of the drawers inside the desk and took out a folded stack of black clothes, with a porcelain white Anbu mask on top. In order to present the suit of midnight to his father and the heads of the clan, Itachi opened a scroll from his kunai pouch and hastily sealed it away after he held it out. Itachi listened in for his first S-rank mission. "Now Itachi-kun, this is going to be an S-rank mission. The time it takes will depend on the target, but you need to keep constant awareness." Afterwards, when the new Uzumaki Naruto saw his temporary sensei, his smile brightened, and he waved like the 6-year-old he was. "Oi, Itachi. Sensei." Naruto jogged forward, calling his sensei's name once more, but the Junin hardly made any movement that would indicate he heard him. He began to leap into the air and wave his arms in front of the Uchiha as he ran in front of him. "Oi, Itachi." Looking down at the bouncing blonde, Itachi appeared to have come out of his reverie. "Oh, Naruto. There, I didn't see you. I was yelling your name out, and you barely flinched," Naruto replied. A tiny snort escaped Itachi as he recalled the previous few hours, glancing at the blonde and the kunai pouch that held his Anbu equipment and mission documents. "Hey Naruto, let's go to the Uchiha compound to prepare for this. I have the supplies we need. I also want to drop off something." Naruto nodded, adding, "As long as they get to some training." The two turned and went toward the Uchiha compound, Itachi leading the way. At the Uchiha compound later, the blonde was ignored to the fullest extent, but he no longer received angry glares, and Naruto's mind conjured up an intriguing moment about what it would be like to be invisible. It wasn't far from where he is now. Itachi and Naruto phased through the compound's gates, with no guards posted, primarily due to the compound's large size in the village. The clan house was completely walled up, obstructing a citizen's view with the Uchiha's clan symbol every few feet, and two men in Konoha flak jackets stood guard at the front as Naruto and Itachi made their way through the clan's small crowds. Itachi turned to the 6-year-old, who was being held tightly by the bodyguards, and said, "Oh, sorry Naruto, I forgot you were with me." Naruto's perspiration fell as he was in the hands of the two robotic sentries, and he said, "Wait out here for me, I'll be right back." The blonde followed his sensei through the doorway, but the guards stopped him in a flash. They did not open their eyes or say anything when they caught him. Naruto examined the blue stars with the Uchiha in the middle on their biceps, while Uzumaki complained as the guards let him go. Both were Uchiha's Naruto guesses. The one on the left had a flat mohawk hairstyle that reminded him of an abandoned road made of the rare asphalt close to this very compound, and a shiny nose ring that glinted in the light. In addition to having a nose piercing, the other shinobi was shorter than the post. Adolescent, had greasy black hair, a thin mustache, and appeared slightly too fat to be a regular mission taker. Onyx black orbs were waiting to be released into the light behind both of their eyelids. The man did not flinch. If it were not for their prior encounter, the blonde would have assumed they had died standing up. Naruto stepped forward cautiously in the direction of Mustache, waving both arms in front of his face as if he were calling a ship from a deserted island. In front of the man's plump face, Naruto attempted to snap his finger, but he remembered that he was unable to do so. Perhaps Idate and Hana's accusations that he was insane would give him some leeway. He took another cautious step in the direction of the do-not cross line and started prodding the tubby outside of Mustache, pushing harder into the enlarged stomach and sinking his finger further into the organic mush. Despite this, Mustache held firm and did not even flinch. The young shinobi turned to Mohawk with a sly grin, his eyes wide as he stared at him without moving an inch after irritating him so much, which had a way of making people sneer. Because they were in the wrong place at the wrong time, where Naruto was bored, and when Naruto was bored, Uzumaki made it his personal mission to drive one of them insane. Someone might believe that Naruto was executing the legendary Hake Rokujuienshu from the Hyuga clan, but he started poking the boy with all of his strength right away, and after making contact, his hand withdrew and returned for more. The teenager flinched and became irate, attempting to stay motionless despite the child's annoyance. After 15 minutes, after hiding the mission scroll and the scroll he got to keep news on, Itachi started to walk back from his room, and when he looked up, he saw the scene in front of him. Blood splatters, black flames, dead bodies all over the floor, and a horrified little brother. He thought it was funny to see Naruto jabbing one of the guards like he was breaking, and the guard appeared to be about to crack. He turned to see two Konoha policemen approaching the gate from the right. "Oimasa, your shift is over." A loud roar erupted at the gate as soon as the sentence was completed. "Oh, stop prodding me, Gaki!" Naruto jumped back, shocked that the teenager had actually moved, as he roared. The boy nodded, and the two ran away from the irate teenager after Itachi, who had just appeared beside Naruto, said, "I think we should leave now, Naruto." It was simple to get away from Mohawk. The two doubled back, allowing the teenager to go past without his noticing, allowing his testosterone-fueled rage to draw him forward. After a little interval, the two turned to face one another and burst out laughing. After a few moments, the two walked back into the middle of the street, their laughter brief and to the point. "Come on Naruto, I have everything to start with the Rasengan." Itachi pulled a scroll from his back pouch as he and Naruto quickly arrived to a Uchiha training site. A flick of the wrist caused it to open, releasing a plume of white smoke. Several enormous bags appeared, one of which contained what Naruto believed to be colorful balls. Reaching in, Itachi took one, causing it to swash in his palms. Naruto's imagination was triggered by Itachi's hesitation. With a tinge of optimism, he asked, "Are we going to have a water balloon fight?" Itachi's little smile turned into a statement. "You're kidding me." However, he immediately recalled that the youngster was 6 years old. Itachi stated wisely, "No, we will have to pop this balloon without chakra." Naruto easily caught the water balloon after he threw it to him. After a moment, he remarked, "Pop it with our chakra?" to the Anbu agent. Itachi nodded and added, "Oh, you mean like the chakra pulse?" The first phase required that your chakra be strong enough to burst a balloon. When Naruto opened the red and light blue scroll that Itachi had taken out, he saw a diagram of what appeared to be scribbling lines in a circle. Naruto placed both hands on the balloon and set down the scroll. The upper one and the bottom one. He started to release chakra while focusing on the holes in his palms. He started moving it around inside the balloon, pushing it this way and that, after adding a sufficient amount. The balloon was moving with the water, and he could see it. Naruto glanced up to check on Itachi, but he was examining the scroll that Naruto had dropped. Naruto discovered that this activity was quite simple after attempting to move it around a bit more. "I'll be done with this jutsu by sunset." He surged it forward, moving his chakra. Suddenly, he observed the balloon press close to its breaking point. Pop! The balloon developed a hole at the front, and water and chakra spilled out in the same manner, scattering chakra and soaking onto the ground. Itachi's expression changed to one of surprise as he turned to face the boy. Looking at the balloon, Itachi asked, "Does that count, Itachi sensei?" He asked, "Are you happy with it?" and took out a balloon for himself. He began to plot how he was going to try it after taking a look at the balloon. Naruto sighed like a child after examining the balloon in his palm. He swiftly retrieved another balloon from one of the bags after tossing the first one down. Like a strategist to a map, Itachi appeared to be still examining the balloon. Naruto picked up his own balloon and fixed his attention on it. He needed to do more than simply puncture the balloon. He needed to make it burst. Perhaps the balloon would pop in all directions and explode if he made the chakra move in a circle. He was a little happy to see it and started pushing the water in a circle. Now, it will blow up if he gets it to move around enough. After 1 hour. After spinning around the chakra in his palm for far longer than he would have liked, Naruto became extremely irritated and shouted that this was not the proper method. And Itachi Sensei remained completely still, gazing at the balloon. He flung his balloon at Itachi and remarked, "Stupid technique." Itachi let out a high-pitched cry as the balloon appeared to go straight into his groin. However, Naruto just spun around to face the remaining forest opening. He observed the grass being pushed back and forth by the wind. His eyes widened as he stared at the wind shifting direction for a few more seconds. Running to the crimson and light blue scroll on the floor, he turned. Itachi was still moaning in agony as he remembered the moment the balloon burst and he suffered whiplash. Naruto swiftly began rolling the scroll open after picking it up. He located the diagram and gave it a long look. He smiled to himself as his eyes grew wide. It's so simple. Naruto grabbed a fresh water balloon and pondered that the scribbles weren't just meant to symbolize chakra. It indicated the direction they were supposed to go in, and he gripped it with both hands, one on top and one on the bottom. In order to force the water to follow him, Naruto started putting chakra into the balloon and shooting it in random directions in the direction of freedom. Naruto observed the balloon seemed to be bubbling. He grinned as he maintained his focus. At last, Naruto realized he was headed in the correct route. He started to increase the chakra and intensify it. As the balloon abruptly ballooned, the stretching surrounding it intensified. Blah. Pop! Naruto grinned gleefully as the water balloon exploded in his grasp. "Yes," he said, emphasizing with his hands. When he looked around again, he saw Itachi lying on the ground and motionless. When a new memory came to mind. "Are you satisfied with it?" Naruto examined the balloon fragments he was holding. Naruto gave himself a sly smile. "I guess I'm not done with it." He silently reached for another water balloon, hoping to destroy it entirely, do it more quickly, or perhaps do it with just one hand. In other places, with his blade now parallel to his backbone, the Morino asked, "Then how am I supposed to use it if I can't see?" The sensei merely gave him a smile. For most Konoha residents, sunset was turning into dusk, which meant the end of the day, but for the more obstinate shinobi, the possibilities simply change. Then you are just going to have to learn how to fight blind. And this is good because I've been meaning to get some actual training in blind fighting anyway. Primarily speaking to himself, Idate remarked, "I wonder how Naruto is doing." When Kakashi heard the comment, he simply grinned. "If I know him I think he's fine," he said. The 8 Year-old Idate nodded and grinned to himself. If anything, he should be concerned about how he would do in the face of Naruto. Early in the morning, the wind kept blowing through the woods until it finally reached the woodland opening where a boy with blonde hair was sleeping against a big tree. Naruto's face was among the various surfaces in the forest where the sun was starting to rise. Naruto awoke and began to stretch while lying on the ground. His eyes opened, and he smiled as he instantly recalled yesterday's events. He had a sense of accomplishment as he recalled his workout from yesterday. After a great deal of practice and focus, he was eventually able to destroy the balloon completely with one hand. Naruto looked at Itachi Uchiha's motionless figure. Fortunately, after spending so much time in that trance, he was able to fall asleep. When he heard a loud rumbling, he realized that he hadn't eaten since yesterday. But was he truly to blame? One of his father's cherished jutsus was taught to him in its initial hef. With that, I would have overlooked something as insignificant as hunger. He stood up slowly, taking care to pop every joint he could. When his sensei fell asleep in the fetal position, Naruto turned to face him. He approached Itachi and began to kick the prone figure. "Oi Itachi. Sensei, I'm going to get something to eat." The Uchiha gazed up at Naruto and stirred a little. Observing the orange skies above them, he queried the blonde, "Is it sunset already?" Naruto simply gazed at him before turning back to face the orange sun that was rising. Naruto deadpanned, "No, it's sunrise, you haven't moved since we began training." Itachi was kind enough to appear astonished and somewhat ashamed. However, he is able to recall exactly what he was dozing off to. Itachi looked around and sat up. He looked to Naruto, who appeared to have a lot of popped water balloons in one place. "So you got the first part of the training?" Naruto appeared to smile, but he was reminded of the urgent situation by another moan from his empty, roiling stomach. Naruto said, "I'm going to go get some breakfast." He turned and began to jog off. "See ya Itachi. Sensei." Itachi glanced back at the open scroll as he watched Naruto jog off. He smiled a little. As a fun tidbit, the scroll's author included the time it took the Yondaime to finish the jutsu as well as the estimated time it would take an average ninja. When he noticed the first part's date, his eyes widened. 10 months. In just a few hours, this tiny bastard completed the task. Within the village. Now that he was firmly established in the community, Naruto was returning home, where he was waiting for some instant ramen. These days, the villagers tend to completely disregard the construction worker with a sense of hatred after their encounter with him before he left for the academy. No one would notice him if he were to nearly blend in with the crowds, but in all honesty, he didn't care. Right now, he only needed to think about his team, his sensei, and the Hokage. He didn't need to worry about them. Additionally, he could count inanimate items that depicted his father's scroll and a pregnant Kushina. The others were onlookers, observing his immediate existence and his smile at the age of 6. And he wasn't going to let his radiant smile to be marred by ignorance. Naruto turned and saw what appeared to be a small bar to his right. "Oi," he said. Inside was the team that used his to win the first exam. Enko was grinning at him. He assumed that his advice had struck a chord. The two other males on her team were standing next to her. Their features were more bewildered but amiable. "You hungry?" she exclaimed, her smile infectious. As Naruto entered the Ichiraku ramen stand, he couldn't help but smile a little. Before the smiling purple head dragged him into a stool the size of him, Naruto watched the man's unflinching smile. Naruto addressed the team nicely. "Aren't we supposed to be enemies?" The three of them gave him perplexed expressions. The other two nodded to the youngster with the patch over his nose, who replied, "We're part of the same village, so there's no need to make rivalries. Just because we are going to fight in a month doesn't mean we have to act hostile towards each other." Now that he thinks about it, that sounds pretty stupid, Naruto remarked, nodding to himself. "I'm a little embarrassed," he muttered, scratching the back of his head. "So, what are you going to eat?" Naruto, who never ate outside of his home, was a little taken aback when he turned to find the man behind the counter cleaning a bowl of ramen with a tiny smile. With a Naruto grin, she added, "He'll take a miso oji-san." Naruto gazed at the girl twice his age in astonishment, but he nodded to the owner. He felt an arm catch him and draw him in. "Ayame!" The man shouted to the back, grinning. A high-pitched "hi," and a young brown-haired girl, about 8 or 9 years old, emerged from the back, working on his ramen with just her head over the boiler. "One miso ramen." "How nice is this location?" The squad all grinned and gave a thumbs up when Naruto asked. With Naruto still in Enko's one-arm embrace, he turned around to face him and said, "Dango is much better though." When Katetsu set his bowl down with a loud clank, Naruto recalled, Don't listen to her, she thinks dango is better than air. She would breathe dango if she could. Who wouldn't? Anko asked him, turning to face the blonde beside her. You would, right? Naruto shrugged and said, I've never had it before. The Uzumaki felt uneasy since he could sense Anko's gaze. She got to her feet and threw her arms wide in shock, saying, You've never tried dango? In an attempt to appear defensive, Naruto said, I never get around to trying new things, so I just get instant ramen. However, Anko took a seat and responded in a non-negotiable manner, saying, Then, at 6 o'clock in the afternoon, you and I are going to grab some dango. In front of the Hokage Tower, we will meet. This is new. Naruto said, Okay. Azumo and Katetsu exchanged glances with her. As the group worked on their ramen and Naruto sat motionless, awaiting his food, the conversation lightened. While waiting for something, Naruto asked, refusing to be silent, So how long have you been genin? 2 years. Naruto grinned and responded with 3 fingers. They both smiled and held up 2 fingers. The team gave him a startled glance before Azumo grinned and continued, 3 months. Aren't you a little excited to advance in your career? Naruto gave him a perplexed look and said, You ought to take some time to unwind in your position. We could have become Chunin sooner if that was our desire. However, there is no pressure on any of our missions. Naruto laughed at it and said, When you make Chunin, you should take some C-rank missions for a while and relax. The worst we can get is we won't find a cat. Azumo concluded his diatribe, but his tone dipped at the end of the sentence, suggesting that Ayame had finished his lunch, instead of pulling a B rank and causing people to perish. She handed the head chef the ramen and said, Here you go, Daddy. She turned to Naruto and smiled, and he smiled back. The old man took it and put it in front of the blonde. Naruto finally got to eat some of the priceless food, and he picked up some of the noodles with one of the chopsticks in the little cup in front of him. The ramen's aroma had been reaching his nose since he was a block away. His mouth started to vacuum the remaining ramen until most of the contents were gone except for the broth, and Naruto was excited to pick up the bowl and drink the broth down. He guided it to his mouth and started slurping up the noodles. The ramen was incredibly delicious, and his eyes were replaced by hearts as he experienced a new kind of love. With a sigh of satisfaction, Naruto set the empty bowl on the counter, slid it away, and remarked to the elderly man, If this is okay then I can't wait till I have some dango. I'm going to need another, sir. The guy simply grinned and his youngest daughter started working on another. Naruto will definitely return here more often. His new pals giggled at his change in taste as he waited expectantly for his second ramen. Ayame was finally visible through the tall counter as Naruto and the squad saw tiny hands handing her father a steaming bowl of ramen. Naruto stopped and appeared to take a huge breath and let it out. They all started to perspire, and if they hadn't known any better, they would have assumed he was holding his breath. Naruto went through multiple bowls of ramen, providing sideshow entertainment for his company as the bowl stacked higher and higher. Katetsu remarked, So what's it like in your band of misfits? Naruto hesitated for a time, reflecting. We've been together since I started the academy. Naruto replied. And we're lucky that we were put together on a team. Anko added, seemingly at random, in between ramen slurps, we hated each other. Anko paused and remarked, But after a bad mission it brought us together. Katetsu and Azumo both laughed at that. We couldn't stand each other, our sensei usually had to stop us from fighting all the time. After giving it some thought, Naruto said, Where is your sensei now? They were all staring more solemnly into their bowls when Azumo muttered, Dead. Naruto added, It took our sensei's life to figure out how close we are. After a brief period of silence, everyone began to grin, and Naruto could feel the stand light up a bit. Katetsu added, Even though we miss her, we'll never forget her and how she's helped us. I can't thank her enough. Anko and Azumo nodded in agreement. At that, Naruto remained silent and asked, Who was she? Naruto believed she was going to punch him, but Anko got up and stood firmly in front of him. Remember that she was Kudo Ayane. The truth is that she was able to smile so quickly in front of Naruto when they met at the Chunin exams because her sensei had always encouraged her to smile more, and Naruto had been able to remind her of it rather than have her suppress it like Orochimaru had done. She said with a confident smirk while pointing at him. She was the Fire Country's best dang seal master. She was capable of anything, so forget about the fourth Hokage or Jiraiya of the Sannin. In fact, her was the primary source of seal knowledge for the fourth Hokage. A boast about her sensei was made by Anko. She was also the prettiest of all kunoichi anywhere in the elemental con. Know the world. Azumo leapt up beside her and adopted a position that was only comparable to hers in sentiment. He too had tears in her eyes, but Naruto could tell they were tears of pride. In his early imagination, Naruto attempted to visualize a woman who instructed the fourth Hokage, depicting a powerful woman in Viking armor standing in front of a kneeling version of his father, who didn't appear particularly heroic in his white coat in the dirt. Naruto was curious to know more about the goddess she was referring to. How did she appear? Anko produced a framed picture from an unknown source, and when she gave it to Naruto, he saw the famous Ayane, who was wearing a lavish yukata with a fan wrapped in front of her waist instead of Viking armor. She had lightning, yellow blonde hair and the only smiling face in the picture. She held something light to her left, but Naruto thought it looked like she was trying to escape a mountain being crushed over you, Anko, who had a very irate expression on her right. On the left, a younger Katetsu appeared to be struggling despite being held by nothing, and Azumo, facing his left and wearing an angry expression, was finally shown in her right palm, which was still soft but mountainous. With a slight smile, Naruto handed it back to Anko after looking up. She's really pretty. I'm stuck because she sealed me to her leg to hold me still, Katetsu said, gesturing to the photo. It is among her most valued seals. Naruto's eyes widened even more when he recalled a black and yellow scroll labeled Hiraishin. She can make something move towards something else and stay there. She never told us, but I think the Yondaime took that and came up with the legendary Hiraishin technique. Naruto's eyes widened even more at the prospect of a seal that can do that. He simply assumed it was another acceptable jutsu. The two boys nodded in agreement with Anko's statement. Yeah, if it weren't for Ayane Sensei we never would have won the Konoha Iwa War. Naruto's thoughts shifted to a little math, calculating that since his father plus Konoha equals War 1, his father equals Konoha. Therefore, if Iwa hates Konoha, he hates his father, and if his father equals himself, he hates him. Needless to say, Naruto will attempt to avoid Earth. The Hiraishin. What is it? Everyone in the stand turned to stare at Naruto as if he had grown a second head when he asked. The Hiraishin. What is it? How did the academy accept you? As she gazed at him with wonder, Anko asked the child. Hey, I didn't have to go through those classes. I skipped those and I stayed in how to use chakra and strategies. Sorry, was Naruto's agitated but swift attempt at rebuttal. The Yondaime never told a soul to his dying breath because he didn't want those who could use it poorly to learn how to use it, thus nobody actually knows how to use it. While washing some of Naruto's used bowls, the chef explained, the technique makes him teleport to a kunai that was inscribed with seals. The only thing the enemy would see is a yellow flash, hence the name. The ninja simply stared at the man as if he were a fish out of water. Ichiraku-san, how did you learn all of that? The elderly man grinned and responded with a hint of pride to Naruto's statement. The surprised elderly man nodded and continued, I've been running this stand since the second Hokage's reign. You tend to pick these things up from customers. Because of his advanced age, Daddy is unable to play tag with me without suffering a hip fracture. All of the ninjas seated at the counter began laughing uncontrollably as the girl behind the shop, who was perched on a stool behind the counter, said this with a pout that the nin could see. Anko was pounding on the table in an attempt to halt the agony in her abs from the laughter. That happened one time. The old man muttered to himself, his angry glare on the genin not working on the flushed cheeks. After the genin's laughter subsided and they paused smiling, Naruto got up and stretched, saying, I need to return to my training. Naruto grinned and added, I still have to kick your ass in the exams, but his joy was cut short as Anko kicked him in the stomach. The blonde was wrapped in white smoke, revealing a stool, but Naruto was thrown back 10 meters and stopped when he fell over on the ground. Unsurprised, Anko turned to see Naruto standing by a taller Iyame. Goodbye. And he took off running at full speed. Anko smiled and added, I like him. The other two looked at Anko for a while before saying, he's alright. Since he's gone, I guess you take care of the bill, Tuchi Ichiraku said, glaring at them with a menacing gleam as they gulped down their remaining noodles. The sink was nearly full of cleaned bowls when they turned around, which is not difficult given that it is only half a meter deep. In other places, Naruto returned to the training grounds he and Itachi had been using an hour earlier after he visibly shivered for no apparent reason and felt as though no one was watching him. Naruto was grateful to see that Itachi was clutching a balloon instead of experiencing a moment. No, a period of time, because the balloon was swashing around. Naruto simply grinned and said, Oi Itachi. Sensei. As if he had just returned from work, Itachi saw him but returned to his balloon. He then proceeded to the open scroll and started to open it further and more, revealing the second stage. After reading how well the first step was explained and how Naruto finished it in the time he had left in the middle of the night, He glanced over at Itachi Sensei, who was silently still trying to master the first step, and realized that he would now need rubber balls to strengthen his chakra. He turned to find another bag next to the water balloon bag, so he opened it further out of curiosity and saw tie-dye rubber balls inside. Naruto turned back to Itachi, thinking that if he witnessed him performing the jutsu, he would learn how to do it. Naruto took one out and started holding it in place until there was a whizzing sound, and Naruto saw a kunai cut into a tree nearer Itachi than Naruto. A small note was attached to the kunai, and Naruto jumped away from the explosive tag and hurried to hide behind a forgotten tree ball. When he heard no explosion, he paused behind the tree and turned to face the kunai. Itachi was reading the note, and Naruto ran out to meet him. Itachi Sensei, what is it? Itachi turned to Naruto and said, I have to go. I will be waiting for an improvement from this jutsu you were working on. He said, a mission. Itachi waved briefly before leaping back towards the town. Naruto stopped when he saw that Itachi had taken the water balloon with him because there was none on the ground. Naruto grinned, knowing that he was getting under his sensei's skin. Naruto glanced at the scroll once more and held the ball out with one hand. I hope everyone tells me how I did in the narrative, and I will finish the next chapter as soon as possible. It's Thursday in the eastern United States today, and I already have the chapter done and will publish it tomorrow. Wow, that was difficult. In any case, Kitsune no Senin won the poll.
So that's it for today. I hope you guys enjoyed it. Don't forget to like, share and subscribe to the channel for more awesome stories like this. Thank you. See you all in my next video.